question, I'd be in serious trouble with the Minister of Finance. I have no authority to pronounce on the fuel levy.
Thank you. We now move to the third question, asked by Honorable T.L. Montana to the Minister of Transport. The question is about the reasons the Minister did not table the strategic plan of Transnet for 2025-26 financial year before Parliament, and whether she formally requested an extension from the presiding officers of Parliament in this regard. Honorable Minister. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't notice, Honorable Trollip. Is that the point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. On a point of order, the Minister is probably right to say she had no authority to speak about the budget. But the question that was posed to her is the Road Accident Fund technically solvent? And she has to answer that question. She has to answer the question. It was put to her. She chose to ignore the question and say she couldn't answer about the budget.
Honorable Trollip, you'll forgive me. I'll have to reflect on that matter and then come back to the House. Thank you. Honorable Minister, if you can answer the third question.
Thank you very much. This is Honorable Montana's question about the fact that we didn't table the strategic plan of Transnet. As a Section 2 public entity, Transnet is not legally obliged to present its strategic plans, corporate plans, or annual performance plans to Parliament as per Section 52 of the Public Finance Management Act. Historically, Transnet has not submitted these plans to protect sensitive commercial information. This is supported by the legal opinion obtained from a Chief Legal Advisor for the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa, dated 26 May 2021, entitled Legal Opinion on the Tabling of the Annual Performance Plan of a Schedule 2 Entity. This legal opinion confirmed that the PFMA does not legally mandate these Section 2 entities to submit their strategic and annual performance plans. However, we do believe that it is important that Transnet needs to account to this Parliament. And Transnet does account through oversight visits by the Transport Portfolio Committee, appearing before parliamentary bodies such as the Portfolio Committee on Transport, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and the Select Committee on Public Infrastructure, as well as through issues raised to ministers in the presidency. In addition, we submit the annual report of the entity, and of course, the financial statements of Transnet are presented in public and are fully available. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Montana, the follow-up question.
Thank you, Speaker. I never thought the Honorable Minister will try to use technicalities to run away from accountability. Transnet plays a critical role in South Africa's economy and its performance. Government recently approved a 94.8 billion guarantees for Transnet. And this came soon after Standard & Poor downgraded Transnet. Now, these are huge numbers, Honorable Minister. And if you say that you use that argument, I think, Speaker, you should also be worried that we will not be able to play our role effectively if we cannot see these strategic plans and performance indicators. Now, I think that Transnet has not, Speaker, delivered on any of its targets in the last 10 years. And I think that under the Department of Public Enterprises, it failed. Under your leadership, it is not meeting any of these targets. We've seen with the recent results that it shows a loss of 1.9 billion rands, which is strangely derived despite the reduction in cash generated from working capital. This is because Transnet, again, has failed to meet its freight volumes for both ports and rail. It budgeted 193 million tons and only managed 160 million tons. And it's for this reason that your failure to table the strategic plan and APPs for Transnet could be considered as highly irresponsible. And I just want to ask, Minister, with all these failures on Transnet and its drain on the economy, Why should we believe if it failed under the Minister of Public Enterprises, it's not meeting all the targets under your leadership? Why should we believe that Transnet will come out of the woods with the current strategy that you're pursuing? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Montana, I'm sure you are aware that the question you have asked is a new question. It doesn't arise from your original question that you asked, because your question was very clear if you read it. It's asking, no. It's asking whether the reasons for not tabling and whether the minister informed the presiding officer. So I'm saying if the minister wishes to answer on this other question, she can, but remember what your original question was about. No, you can't clarify. No, your question, I think I have to protect both you as members and members of the executive equally. You complain at times about members not answering your question, but at times you expand your questions even when it is not necessary. So I want to allow you to explain. As I say, the minister is within her rights. Like she has done earlier, where she answered a question which was a new question. So, but I just was reminding you on your question that you have asked originally, as it is in the order paper. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, I know that Honorable Montana and I share a common love of Transnet and a common interest in everything that Transnet does. So as I knew I would be answering him, I came prepared. So, Honorable Montana, rail volumes for the year were up to 160 million tons, representing a 5.5 increase from the prior year. Revenue generated was up 82.7 billion, which is a 7.2% increase. Net loss for the year was 1.9 billion, reflecting a 7.4 improvement compared with the prior year. Now, of course, we're both adults and neither of us believe in Father Christmas or the Easter Bunny. The key thing that I'm concerned about is, are the figures moving in the right direction or are the figures moving in the wrong direction? At the moment, the figures are moving in the right direction, and that gives me hope. But we know that without significant investment in infrastructure, we're not going to get those figures up further. I don't have time to tell you about that, but I'll answer it in due course.
Thank you very much for the love of Transnet. So both of you were
Can confirm
prepared.
the love is mutual.
I see. Very obvious. Honorable CN Malem Mecha.
No, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Allow me to take this opportunity to further congratulate the Minister for have turned things in this department. Dealing with this question, not far from how it deviated from original. One will have to pose this one, Minister. You have set Transnet a target of moving 250 million tons of freight by 2029. Based on their performance over the past financial year, do you believe they are on track to meet this target? Thank you so much.
For the love of Transnet, it's now a supplementary question on a new question raised by Honorable Montana. Again, I want to remind you, Honorable Malimeta, that this is totally a new supplementary, not arising from the question, but I'm sure for the love of Transnet, the minister has an answer.
The next exciting episode. Honorable Speaker, I think what I had begun to say to Honorable Montana is that, of course, in the previous financial year, Transnet had set itself a target of 170 million tons. It didn't achieve it. It achieved 160 million tons. And it is my view that it will not be able to achieve the tonnage required until there is substantial investment in infrastructure. in that regard, there are three remedies that we are undertaking. The first is to develop a policy that would allow our customers to support infrastructure development and find a way that we could repay them through their freight charges. That policy is in its developmental stage. The second is we have put in an application to the budget facility for infrastructure for 14.4 billion, and we will be putting in another application for 16.5 billion in October. And the third, as you know, is later this year, we will begin to issue requests for proposals for those who would want to take a concession so that they could fundamentally improve our network. And obviously, in due course, that rail network would revert to the ownership of the state. Thank you.
Thank you. The next supplementary question is from Dr. Hansinger.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, the Transport Economic Regulator is one of the significant legislative measures in support of your strategic plan with Transnet, Speaker, that was established during the previous term and will be put into effect during the forthcoming period. How will this level the playing field for participation, especially from the private sector, and allow the sector to be as competitive as it needs to be? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Hansinger. You know, I must say that this question, for those who know Durban, it reminds me of Olympic buses coming from Chatsworth via Ringer Road to Durban. So it's a via, you know, this question is allowing Ringer Road via, to Durban.
Your luggage is in the bag.
Order, Honorable
Okay.
Matafa. Whips of parties, please talk to your members on virtual to make sure that they do not disturb the House. Honorable Minister.
It's really Transnet's day today. So the Transnet Economic Regulator, the Transport Economic Regulator.
Tlamulo, please. You know, it's in Tlamulo's phone, but I hear a different voice. Order, honorable members. Minister.
So the role of the transport regulator is to determine, one of its roles, is to determine the tariffs that can be charged for the transportation of goods. So already in the first network statement that we put out, we said for a ton, to move a ton of iron ore, you can charge so much, to move a ton of coal so much, and so on and so forth for different categories of goods. And obviously this is important because Transnet Freight is still operating on the Transnet network. And you don't want a situation where Transnet Freight becomes both a referee and a player. So in order to level the playing field, the tariffs that will be determined by the economic regulator apply to everybody, private sector operators and to Transnet Freight. And of course, the economic regulator has also got to give information about the condition of the lines and other appropriate commercial information so that everybody is able to participate on an equal basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Blosser.
No, sibonge Somlomo. Noma ke kuyinqobo evanga nje yombuzo esijika ya ethatha indawo yayo. Nathi sosohlaba esikhungusini sibona ukuthi sibhekaphi. Minister, you came prepared, so you're not going to hold me accountable to the original question. But the question, Minister, is that if Transnet does not then provide us with these yearly strategic plans and performance, how then do the portfolio committee, Parliament, and yourself as a department, how then do you hold them accountable in terms of their strategy and to actually see that whatever is that they're planning on a yearly basis, they actually meet those targets and they're actually, providing services as guided by the department as per their own strategy on an annual basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Now, that was a real follow-up question. Honorable Speaker, I think that already the honorable member has participated in oversight visits to Transnet. Obviously, when the annual report is tabled, the annual report gives all of the targets, and obviously the committee is free to ask, why did you not achieve this? How are you going to make sure that you achieve it in the forthcoming year? So I don't think that there's anything that prevents you from holding the entity fully accountable. And I'm sure that you will continue to exercise thorough oversight over Transnet as you have done over the past year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move to the next question, which has been asked by Honorable N.J. Noluchungu to Minister of Transport. The question is, considering recent reports revealing a disturbing surge in violence targeting e-hailing operators, what urgent and robust measures will her department implement to protect e-hailing drivers and ensure safe coexistence with the taxi industry, especially at flashpoints like the Maponya Mall? Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question. The department is in the process of publishing the National Land Transport Regulations this month, which incorporate e-hailing services into the national regulatory framework. The new regulations require e-hailing operators to obtain operating licenses, ensure services are authorized and safe, and these rules establish clear standards for quality and security, support legal compliance, and aim to reduce conflict between operators while improving overall safety. Law enforcement agencies are prepared to address any criminal activity and possible violence between taxi operators and e-hailing drivers. NAT joints and PROV joints are on high alert and ready to coordinate interventions as needed. Question B, the department remains committed to ongoing engagement with key stakeholders to promote the safe and harmonious coexistence of all modes of transport. Government is always prepared, as has been the case in the past, to bring disputing parties to the table for mediation purposes to resolve conflict. In addition, with the implementation of the new regulations, the department is conducting targeted workshops and public awareness campaigns to educate stakeholders on the updated regulatory framework and to clarify the new rules for e-hailing services. These continuous platforms for dialogue and information sharing are essential to foster mutual understanding and improved cooperation across the public transport industry, thereby contributing to a more integrated and stable public transport system. At a recent meeting, which I convened after the unfortunate events at Maponya Mall, with the Minister of Police, the Gauteng Premier, and the Gauteng MEC of Roads and Transport, Acting Minister Kachalia requested the South African Police National Commissioner to develop a deployment plan and identify hotspots for the purposes of proactive and preemptive law enforcement to curb and deal with conflict and violence. Thank you.
Thank you. A follow-up question will be done by Honorable N.J. Noluchungu.
Sibonga Somlomo, I will take the follow-up question. Again, Minister, thank you for the response. And look, I don't think that two wrongs make a right, Minister. While we are waiting for the amendments within the national road regulations, the cohesiveness between the taxi industry and the e-hailings is not there. And these fights and these battles that we see in regards to what had happened in Maponya Mall is not an isolated incident. It's not a first of its kind. So while we're waiting to regulate the transport system so that the e-hailing can be accepted as within the transport system, what then are we doing to make sure that the cohesiveness between the e-hailing and the taxi bosses exist so that we actually protect even our people who are caught within the crossfire between the two violence industries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
I think that that's a very important issue. And it's important to say that prior to the promulgation of these regulations, it's not a situation where there was no regulatory framework for e-hailing drivers. But I think that with this new, Gauteng did have a permitting system. But I think with this new framework, these regulations obviously have the force of law. The MEC of Gauteng and the MEC in KZN, because I have interacted extensively with both of them on disputes that have arisen between the e-hailers and the taxi industry, have both indicated to me that in the incidents that have taken place, there have been actors involved who may not be formally defined as either members of the taxi industry or members of the e-hailing industry. And in interactions I've had myself with the taxi industry, they've said the same thing to me. And that is why we thought it appropriate to meet with the Minister of Police and make sure that there is proactive deployment to hotspots so that we can protect legitimate operators in both industries and, of course, commuters from getting caught up in the crossfire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Maduna.
I will take the question for Honorable Maduna. Minister, you have responded to the follow-up question that I would have prepared in this regard. But what I would want to ask you is that taking into consideration that the online app that is being administered for e-hailing is actually being done by an international company. What plans do you have in place in ensuring that you encourage South African companies to develop an e-hailing app that will assist South Africans to participate in that space? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
I think what is important to say is that the regulations themselves also regulate e-hailing apps. And of course, we know that the taxi industry themselves have developed an e-hailing app because they are wanting to respond to the times and to the way in which commuters would want to call for services. So I think that the regulations do cover the nature of e-hailing applications. And we ourselves are eager to ensure that these are appropriately registered. Of course, the development of small enterprises in this area would be something we would refer to the relevant department where there's appropriate enterprise support so that such developments can flourish and grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Hatzinger.
Thank you, Speaker. Minister, on two previous occasions when content in the National Land Transport Act was considered as the primary legislative framework to establish a workable platform for the relationship between public transport participants, including taxis, meter taxis, e-hailing operators, and others, both bills were rushed, falling short of addressing crucial needs in establishing a workable solution for sharing markets. Stability and harmony need to be built into a future improved and effective shared operations model, which I believe is currently being drafted as suggested amendments to the NLTA. Do you think this will put an end to rival violence and ensure user safety?
The Honourable Minister.
I think there's always room to improve legislation. But I think that at the end of the day, conflict is not an abstract issue. It is something that happens between human beings because of constrained economic circumstances or because there's competition over particular routes and particular passengers. And that conflict can't be solved by regulation. It has to be solved by mediation, by education, and where that fails, there have to be law enforcement operations. And I was very pleased with the meeting we had with the Minister of Police, where he was very proactive in the deployment. And it gave me hope that those who have ulterior motives for fostering conflict between these two industries could be dealt with.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Khadebe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Honorable Minister, has there been any liaising with e-hailing platforms to integrate safety advisories, driver communication networks, or emergency response systems, which also includes support services, if any, is the department offering to victims and affected families? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
This is a new question, and it's not 100% clear. So if you're asking me, do we communicate with the e-hailing industry in our road safety programs? Yes, we do. If you're asking me, do we compensate those who are victims of violence? No, we don't.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Question 812 has been asked by the Honourable Makasi to the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. The question is about the reasons that a certain firm was appointed to investigate irregular procurement in the pressure swing adsorption oxygen plant project, and names of the other firms that applied and were considered but not selected to do the forensic report. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Thank you for the question. On the 23rd of July 2025, the Department appointed PwC as a suitable service provider to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the alleged serious maladministration, fraud and corruption with regards to the tenders awarded by the IDT for the rollout of the PSA oxygen plants. The media had by then extensively covered this issue and had caused further tensions between the department and entity. In addition, Parliament had also raised many concerns as a result of the allegations levelled against the IDT. Due to the magnitude of the PSA tender and the international funding that was involved, the sensitive nature of this matter required a credible institution to complete a full forensic investigation. The department chose PwC for their experience, capacity, and reputation in handling such projects due to the technical requirements and sensitivity involved. 3 service providers submitted RFQs for the appointment of a service provider for investigations into these allegations, as previously outlined. The other institutions that applied but were not selected were the Analytical Forensic Investigative Services and Abacus Financial Crime Advisory. Thank you.
I have been informed that the Honourable Mahlangu will take charge of the first question on behalf of the Honourable Makasi in accordance with Rule 137(10)(a). The Honourable Mahlangu.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Minister, in a follow-up question, will you say that the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act was properly followed in the process of selecting the firm appointed for the project, and that the selection was conducted in a transparent and a competitive manner? Thank you very much.
The Honourable Minister.
Yes.
We move on to the second supplementary question, which will be asked by the Honourable Bath.
Minister, the DA has always stood for exposing corruption because only then can South Africa grow and create jobs. Yet at the IDT, we see the opposite. wasted funds, unqualified contractors, and failed infrastructure projects. Most troubling, however, is the conduct of a member of the Portfolio Committee who on the 12th of December met the suspended RDT CEO at the V&A waterfront. They then issued a statement on the 13th of December in the name of the committee without its consent, dismissing the 800 million rand statement, oxygen plant scandal rather, as lacking substance. That statement proved to be false, and the clandestine meeting never explained. Strangely, the committee, the ANC, Action SA, EFF, and the MKP remain silent on the RDT scandal. Why is that? But the real question is, when will the suspended CEO, Tebogo Malaka, be arrested for bribing Peter Louis Myburgh, and when will the board finally dismiss her? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Barth, for the question. And I think the one thing, if I may, that has astounded me during the IDT scandal is not so much the questions as to the conduct of the IDT, but to continually repeat false narratives to delegitimize the investigation into the IDT and cover it up. And I think that that has really, really worried me as to why that took place among so many political parties. The reality is as the executive authority, Honourable Barth, I do not conduct disciplinary cases against CEOs. That is currently with the board. I do, however, think that your question would also be appropriate to the Minister of Police or the Acting Minister of Police, because it's not like no one saw or no one didn't see what happened on that tape. There was a clear intent to bribe Mr. Louis Myburgh, and I, for one, can't explain why the acting CEO still hasn't been arrested. I think that it also creates worrying questions in the public's mind as to why someone is able to allegedly bribe someone and 4 or 5 weeks later, they still haven't been arrested. But I think that your question would be appropriate towards the Acting Minister of Police. Thank you.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Zebi.
Okay, so I will take the question on behalf of Honourable Zebi. Minister, as far as you know, what was the time lapse between the going to the market to look for the suppliers to do this particular work, and there was PwC. When PwC was chosen, did it come in terms of the cost? Was it the lowest cost that they submitted amongst those that had bid?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. Again, another question, not to get to the bottom of what happened at RDT, but how we got there. But that's fine, because that's also in line with transparency. Honourable Garner, they were not the lowest bid, but that does not mean that they are precluded from being appointed. There was a variance of 61,000 Rand between PwC and Abacus. There was a variance of 190,000 Rand with Analytical Services and PwC. However, after reviewing the RFQs and noting the serious allegations that were involved and the complexities of the case, a deviation submission was motivated for the appointment of PwC, and this was supported by the Acting Director General for Supply Chain Management and approved by the Director General, and this was done under the provisions of DPWI Circular 229 of 2023-2024. Thank you.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable van Staden.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, the IDT board announced that the CEO has been suspended following the damning findings of an independent investigation into the tender fraud of 800 million rand of an oxygen plant project. There are also allegations made in the media that it was revealed during a meeting in June 2025 of the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure, but the tip-off was received by an MP. But some MPs received payments from the IDT. Can the minister indicate to this House if there is currently investigations underway regarding these allegations against some MPs? What action will be taken if such investigation finds that some MPs did receive payments from the IDT? And can you indicate how many MPs are involved in these allegations? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van Staden. Let me just say that I think that if Ms. Malaka was prepared to bribe a journalist, I think she was probably prepared to bribe anyone, quite frankly. And, you know, you hear a lot of things and you hear a lot of names. Now, you know, we only work on evidence. I can only work on evidence. We did try to get to the bottom of that allegation. We haven't found any evidence to support it. But who knows, maybe once Ms. Malaka is eventually arrested, she might try and cut a deal and say, well, you know, I'll give up names for immunity. That's a possibility. So I don't think that we've seen the end of this story with regards to who received what. And so, you know, once we heard that allegation, we did try and pursue it, but we weren't able to get any further information from whistleblowers. So it remains an allegation at this point. Thank you.
We now move on to question number 866, which has been asked by the Honourable Mabena to the Minister of Transport. The question is, considering the Minister's announcement on 22 August 2025 that 11 new train operating companies have been awarded conditional slots, how does her department intend to ensure that the specified private operators are able to meaningfully contribute to improving efficiency, reliability, and competitiveness in the freight rail sector? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much. The allocation of conditional slots to new train operators was undertaken through an open and transparent process, initiated by the network statement issued by the Transnet Rail Infrastructure Manager on the 20th of December 2024 and closed on the 27th of February 2025. Applicants received from prospective operators were evaluated against specific criteria, which included proof of cargo volumes through confirmations from cargo owners or letters of intent, the type and source of rolling stock to be deployed, technical requirements such as the number of slots required and proposed routing, financial strength, risk management capacity, and compliance with safety and environmental requirements. Following this assessment, applications were subjected to a due diligence process that included credit checks, verification of broad-based Black economic empowerment credentials, South African Revenue Services clearance, and politically exposed person screening. The TOCs that successfully met all requirements have now been granted conditional slot awards on specified routes of the Transnet infrastructure network. The next step in this process will be the conclusion of the rail access agreements between TRIM and the approved operators, enabling them to commence operations on the infrastructure. It is anticipated that the operators will reach operational readiness within a period of 12 to 26 months. Collectively, they are expected to move an estimated 20 million tons of cargo between 2026 and 2029, thereby enhancing capacity utilization, improving network density, and contributing to a reduction in unit costs. The infrastructure manager will monitor the performance of the operating companies through defined efficiency standards to ensure operations meet competitive benchmarks. In parallel, the infrastructure manager is prioritizing capital, operational, and corridor expenditure, supported by submissions to the budget facility for infrastructure and other funding mechanisms being developed in collaboration with the Department of Transport to strengthen the reliability of the network. In addition, the Transport Economic Regulator will provide oversight to ensure both TRIM and the operators operate in a fair and equitable manner, thereby supporting greater efficiency and affordability in the movement of freight. This allocation process is iterative, with annual and quarterly cycles allowing for the entry of additional operators, thereby progressively enhancing competition, efficiency, and competitiveness of the freight rail sector.
First supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mabena.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, we welcome that. I think from the DA, we think that this is a progressive step. You've just mentioned now the issue of the rail access agreements with the infrastructure manager. While these new operators may run trains, can the rail access agreements incorporate that we allow these operators to also contribute in terms of maintenance? Because currently, Transnet still retains sole control as the network manager. Does the department have any intention of moving towards further concessioning of rail operations and network management to the private sector? And if not, why should South Africans believe that the same inefficiencies and mismanagement under Transnet will not simply continue? But what we are essentially pushing for, or what we are asking you to do through the rail access agreements with TRIM, is to ensure that we don't have only Transnet retaining full control of the network, but also allowing the private sector to also play a role. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Transnet is going to be the infrastructure owner and the infrastructure manager. Maintenance of the network can be carried out as a result of the applications we're putting into the budget facility for infrastructure, because we understand that we need immediate upgrades to the network. I've already explained that we are looking at developing, we are in the process of developing with Transnet a policy that will allow our customers, not operators, our customers, to contribute towards network improvement, and there would be a process by which they could be paid back that contribution. But in the long term, the intention through the RFIs that we issued earlier this year is to concession out the 5 priority lines so that there can be major refurbishment through private sector investment. We imagine that the situation may be similar to the kind of environment that exists in SANRAL at the moment, where the private sector can build and operate national roads, but at the end of the operating period, those roads would move back to the ownership of the state. So we imagine a similar situation because we realize that the scale of the improvement needed for our rail system is far in excess of what even the budget facility for infrastructure can offer at this point in time.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Nkupane.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, how will the involvement of private sector in freight rail improve how will the involvement of the private sector in freight rail optimize the rail asset base, and what role does the Transnet play in this optimization through sweating the assets?
The Honourable Minister.
So I think the way in which we need to understand this is that Transnet has a target of moving 250 million tons of freight by 2029. So that freight At the moment, we are moving somewhere in the region of 165 million to 170 million tons. So what we are chasing is 80 million tons that need to be moved on the rail system, because that is the appetite for the utilization of rail. We expect that the new operators that have already been approved could move about 20 million tons of that freight. Now, obviously, that's important because Transnet will be getting revenue from those operators. And at the moment, Transnet has an asset base which they are not adequately sweating, because they should be moving in the region of 250 million tons of freight. At the same time, Transnet has locos and wagons that are standing empty. The intention is to form a ROSCO, a rolling stock company. So these operators have indicated where they're getting their locos and their wagons from. They could be interested in utilizing surplus stock that Transnet has, and that obviously also helps Transnet to adequately sweat its assets. As you've heard, we're not ending with the current operators. There is a rolling process whereby new operators can be brought on, subject to the availability of slots, and also, of course, in the medium term, the condition of the lines. Thank you.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Montana.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, the MK Party has cautioned you against your Transnet network statement allowing for third-party access to the network. We've cautioned you against the vertical separation, breaking down Transnet as you do. And we've said that these measures haven't worked everywhere else in the world where they've been implemented. But despite this, you are steaming ahead with your plan. And of course, that is a choice that you have made. You said substantial investment is required for rail. And for rail, you mentioned 14 billion, you mentioned 16 billion, which is a whopping 30 billion rands by the state. Now, we have looked at your business case. You are trying to find out what is it that the private sector, these third-party train operating companies are bringing in terms of measurable investment to partner. We don't see those numbers. So if you can please share with the House, what are these numbers that the private sector are going to invest? Because what we are seeing—
Thank you, Honourable Montana.
Subsidizing the private sector in this model. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Honourable Montana, as a student of rail, you would know that it's not true that these reforms have not worked elsewhere in the world. In fact, the reforms that Transnet are introducing have been effected almost everywhere in the world, including Russia, China, South America, Europe, the North Americas, Mexico. Almost everywhere in the world, you have got the separation between infrastructure management and operations. So what these operators will bring to Transnet is revenue for the usage of the line. And what they will also do is they will bring to the country—
Honourable Minister, just a moment. Honourable Deputy Minister, online, please make sure that your microphone is switched off. Honourable Minister, please proceed.
See, it's not just the two of us that are enthusiastic about Transnet. What I was saying is that the operators will bring revenue to Transnet, but equally importantly, they will bring a service to sectors of the economy that are really suffering at the moment because they're unable to move their produce. If you go to a place like Sishen, you will find that every playing field in the area is loaded with iron ore because Transnet is not able to evacuate the commodity as speedily as Kumba needs that commodity to be evacuated. And this is impacting on jobs. It has the potential to lead to retrenchment. And therefore, we have to find ways, in the absence of the state being able to cover all of the money that is required for the upgrade of the network, we have to find other ways in which to bring finances into the system.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Blose.
Yeah, thank you very much, Minister. Clearly, we do not know the values and the numbers that these private companies are bringing to partner with Transnet. Because the reality is that you are selling this state asset to private players and you're actually subsidizing them to participate. And you can't give us those figures. But additionally, Minister, you announced, there was an announcement of a public-private partnership with a company called Lisco. And we just want to know the details of that company and what sort of arrangement is Lisco going to be operating under. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Minister.
That is definitely a new question. I don't have the details. Give me a written question, I'll answer it.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 869 has been asked by the Honorable Ghana to the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The question is whether the Minister intends to invoke Section 11 of the National Gambling Act, Act 7 of 2004, which prohibits online gambling to deal with the online casino games offered by licensed sports betting operators. If not, what is his department's approach to online casino games offered by licensed as well as unlicensed sports betting and gambling operators? The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. We are very much concerned about the problem that Honourable Ghana is talking about. But I just want to make the point that actually the department is already implementing the provisions of Section 11. The problem that you are talking about is one that bypasses those provisions as they currently are working. And one of the issues to explain in that regard is that any offering of online casino games by licensed sports betting operators would constitute unlawful conduct in terms of the Act, the National Gambling Act of 2004. And online casino games, whether offered by licensed or unlicensed operators, are illegal. That's the fact of how the law works. And bookmakers and other operators are licensed by provinces. That's the other dynamic. So provincial licensing authorities are the ones that are responsible for licensing. The National Gambling Board is an oversight body. It coordinates with them, but it also does then enforce the act, as I say above. But we would also like to highlight that we take collaboration with other law enforcement agencies seriously as part of our response to this thing. And we are trying to get to the bottom. One of the problems that you and I have discussed, Honorable Ghana, is the proliferation of online gambling through platforms that are not supposed to be offering those. So we're trying to find a way with other law enforcement agencies to get to the nub of that. How does that happen? How do platforms such as Facebook and others suddenly become a launch pad for some of these things? So Section 11 is already enforced. What is happening is actually bypassing the Section 11 provisions. But we will continue trying to collaborate as much as possible with all of this, and including working with these companies. The NGB is working with law enforcement to find lasting solutions to solve online gambling challenges. And in respect of the unlicensed operators, the NGB, in collaboration with the Financial Intelligence Center, the South African Police Service, and the banking sector, are implementing measures that include the blocking and confiscation of payments of suspected proceeds of illicit gambling activities from illegal operators. The NGB has established a working relationship with Google Africa to remove and restrict access to identified illegal websites from their search engines. And each time such websites are identified, the websites will be referred to Google Africa for the said intervention. And to date, there are 90 websites that were referred to Google Africa, and a total of 10 websites were to be removed from their search engines. Conducting consumer awareness campaigns on the risk of engaging in gambling through illegal operators is one of the things that the NGB does. And the NGB works with the National Joint Operational and Intelligence Structures to facilitate the establishment of a stakeholder priority committee to address illegal gambling. And that stakeholder priority committee is constituted to help in providing strategic guidance towards combating illegal online gambling. The strategic guidance has proven to be fruitful when conducting raids in land-based gambling outlets. Through raids, gambling equipment are confiscated, of which in the previous financial year, over 143 gambling machines were confiscated. And additionally, parts to make 50 gambling machines were confiscated during the period of reporting under review. One of the critical steps taken to combat online gambling is to identify illegal online gambling sites. And in order to identify illegal gambling sites, the NGP relies on the operators and the public complaints through the NGP's fraud hotline to report the illegal websites. And some progress has been made in this regard and it will be continued. In other instances, information is obtained through the banks when unlawful winnings are confiscated through which the illegal online gambling activity has occurred, are mentioned in a prescribed NGP form. To further aid in the identification process, the URL of the gambling website is used in the determination process.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Ghana.
Ken Samtramashtul. DM.
Yes, sir.
We have become a destination of choice for gambling companies as a country. I know you like reading reports from States SA. There's a report that they released a day ago that indicates that the fastest growing industry in South Africa is actually gambling. It has grown on average by 72% year on year from 2018 to 2023. And it contributes over 54% of personal services spent by households. So, Minister, you convened the National Gambling Policy Council. You are saying that these bookmakers have bypassed the national legislation and they went straight to the provinces. In the National Gambling Policy Council, the provinces are there. The issue of advertising of gambling in South Africa. What are you doing about it? Because this is not a matter of legislation. Why is your department not updating the regulations on advertising so that we can limit the exposure of gambling in society? That's making South Africans more poor. Because you and I know there's no country, no nation that has ever gambled its way to prosperity. Now, Ken Samtramashtul.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. As you know, Honourable Ghana, the one part that I was answering was with respect to what are we doing with Section 11. The one that came out of States SA report is a demonstration that South Africa is facing a gambling addiction problem. And we are arguing that one of the things that we should be doing is to ban the advertisement of gambling. And I agree with you on that proposition. It would go a long way in reducing the exposure of people to gambling. And you and I have discussed this matter before. We had a meeting about it, and I said to you, it's one of the things that we took to the National Gambling Council to say, we need to find an agreement where we limit the exposure of South Africans to gambling advertisement because it creates a culture where gambling is socially cool. And the States SA report demonstrates the economic effect of that. So on that part, we share the same perspective with you, and we will get that discussion to go through with the National Gambling Council. The point I was making was the NGP does not have the arbitrary power to act on its own in that regard. The reason the regime of law says provinces are the ones that do provincial licensing, it limits what the NGP can do on its own. It needs to get that as an agreement of the National Gambling Council. That is the point that I was making. But in substance, the fact that we must limit exposure to gambling is a point that we agree with you on. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mosikatsi.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Deputy Minister, in light of the growing concern over unlicensed online gambling platforms, including unlicensed sports betting operators, targeting local consumers without regard for national regulations or player protection, how will the revised version of the 2018 National Gambling Amendment Bill, considered on the 22nd of July 2025 by the National Assembly, strengthen the capacity of the National Gambling Board in combating online gambling, confiscating illegal winnings made from unlicensed online gambling sites, and expediting the prosecution of illegal online gambling sites. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. And as I was explaining in my previous reply to Honorable Ghana, so that bill introduced Section 76A to strengthen enforcement by the National Inspectorate. And as I was saying, currently the National Inspectorate cannot conduct enforcement activities without approval and being accompanied by the provincial inspectors. So this section empowers the national inspectors to conduct these enforcement activities with or without an inspector appointed in terms of a provincial law and together with other enforcement agencies. The mandate is also widened to allow for the National Inspectorate to investigate illegal gambling activities in South Africa, serve the suspected illegal operators with a notice to stop operating pending an investigation, litigation, or prosecution. Further to this, the national inspectors are afforded powers to interact with related inspectorates to investigate and report cases related to illegal gambling activities and to work collaboratively with relevant institutions to monitor and establish measures to curb illegal or unlicensed gambling activities. The 2018 bill further mandates the National Gambling Board to notify financial institutions, including banks and any internet service provider, to cease business with an operator that has been operating in contravention with the bill. The bill prohibits financial institutions to process unlawful payment transactions for illegal gambling activities to which the bill applies and which are prohibited under the Financial Intelligence Center Act of 2001. The bill encourages strengthening collaboration between the National Gambling Board and other organs of state or institutions responsible for matters related to gambling for the purposes of supporting the objects and functions of the National Gambling Board. This is a new section that empowers the National Gambling Board to enter into agreements with these organs of state as contemplated in the Constitution to provide for the joint exercise or performance of their respective powers and functions and to establish a forum or similar body for such purposes. The NGB is working collaboratively with and will continue to work with provincial regulators on compliance and license enforcement and other agencies, such as the Financial Intelligence Center, the banking sector, and the internet service providers.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Chance.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Minister, you've made reference to the fact that we have a surge of illegal gambling in this country, as well as addiction. In fact, we have an epidemic of addiction, particularly among vulnerable people and young people. Now, one of the provisions of the Act is that the gambling operators levy an amount of money to fund the Responsible Gambling Foundation and other NGOs which will deal with the problems of addiction. But now, as a result of the explosion of gambling, they don't have the resources to be able to deal with the demand. So my question is, would you support the change of the regulations to increase the levy or to make sure that those operators that are not paying the levy are forced to pay the levy? And if so, by what increase, what measure of increase would you recommend?
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. In principle, anyone who's supposed to pay who does not pay, they must be forced to pay. So I would agree with that. And if there is a determination that the capacity of the NGB to run the program, the remedial program that it needs to run, would require an increase in the levy, I would not be opposed to such a proposition. But I'm not in a position off the top of my head to calibrate what percentage rise that would be. We'd have to get into the numbers to make it optimal. But the point must also be made that the addiction problem is not gambling. The addiction problem.
Honourable Deputy Minister, my apologies. Honourable members, Honourable Mhlongo. Honourable Mhlongo. Please mute your microphone. Honourable members, please make sure that your microphones are muted. There have been a number of interruptions this afternoon. And could I ask the chief whips of the parties also to inform their members not to switch on their microphones? My apologies, Deputy Minister, please proceed.
So to say that there must be a proliferation of gambling only because we will raise money in order to run remedial programs is not to solve the problem. The problem is to try a prevention to reduce the number of people that are exposed to gambling. That is why I was saying to Honorable Ghana, I am more inclined to support a legislative intervention that works towards reducing the very exposure of people to gambling. We can deal with the programs in addiction. They must be improved as well, but we also need to try our level best to limit the very attraction of people to gambling as a way. And it's a very complicated ecosystem because one of the things that you see now in South Africa is even as you walk into an airport, one of the very first things that you encounter is an advertisement of a gambling company. So we do have a problem in that regard. And they would argue that they are exercising their commercial rights to pay for advertisement. So the real problem is, if people are constantly being bombarded with adverts to that effect, what does that do to their psyche? And that can't be solved by raising fees in order to take them to rehab. We need to deal with the exposure problem. And on that front, I would be very much willing to work with anybody who shares that sentiment. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Nchili Ngila.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. With the Deputy Minister's acceptance that we have a gambling addiction problem as a nation and overexposure of gambling as advertisements, what regulations are in place to prevent minors from being active in online casino games and other gambling activities offered by licensed and unlicensed gambling operators?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. As I was explaining, Honorable Nchingila, one of the things that we have done is to include that section 76A in the bill in order to allow us to inspect some of these places that are exposing minors to gambling when they are not supposed to. But as I was saying, the major issue is minors are being exposed to gambling wherever they go. As long as you have this proliferation of advertisement, it means even when you walk with your child through a public space such as an airport, they are going to be bombarded with this thing. So part of what I was saying, we are now trying to think about is how best do we respond to the issue of public exposure through advertisement? And on that front, as I was saying, and I will repeat, I support any initiative to the effect of limiting the public exposure of minors and adults to gambling, even if it means restricting the levels of advertisement that are allowed for that sector. Thank you very much, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Minister. Question number 815 has been asked by the Honourable R.C. Adams to the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development. The question is given that the rural development is a transversal function. What effective systems have been put in place to ensure coordination and synergies between different units in implementing infrastructure development programs to stimulate economic growth in rural communities, and what measurable indicators are being set to monitor progress? The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the programs implemented under the first three pillars of the integrated rural development sector, namely strategic pillar number 1, infrastructure development, maintenance and investment, and strategic pillar number 2, economic development, industrialization and job creation, that are both aligned to the strategic priority number 1 of government, driving inclusive growth and job creation and strategy. And strategic pillar number 3, education and skills development, aligns to strategic priority number number 3 of government, building a capable, ethical and developmental state, ignite economic growth in rural communities. The department convened a number of workshops and bilaterals with both provincial government departments responsible for the multi-sectoral, intergovernmental and multifaceted rural development mandate, as well as national departments to identify their constitutional mandate and performance indicators for implementation of the comprehensive rural development program implemented through the 6 pillars of the IRDSS. These indicators outline performance monitoring and evaluation for both national and provincial governments. In addition, the department convenes a quarterly rural development intergovernmental relations forum, which meets on a quarterly basis with national sector departments who implement programs and projects in rural areas to consider progress on rural development plans by both national and provincial government for purposes of intergovernmental oversight, monitoring, evaluation, and intervention to unblock service delivery bottlenecks where they exist in the 44 districts. Deputy Speaker, the department has produced a report on the performance monitoring and reporting of contribution of the multi-sectoral departments and provinces based on the mutually developed performance indicators for the 2024-2025 financial year, which outlined progress made in implementing indicators since the approval of the Cabinet approved Medium-Term Development Plan 2024 to 2029. The branch has analyzed the 2024-2025 indicators and currently aligning them with the MTDP for strengthening and impact reporting in the 2025-2026 financial year. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Adams.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, what catalytic rural infrastructure development projects are being implemented or in the pipeline, and what is the overall economic impact or envisaged economic output since the promulgation of the Integrated Rural Development Sector Strategy and the District Development Model? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The infrastructure development, maintenance and investment, economic development, industrialization and job creation, education and skills development. Honorable Deputy Speaker, these catalytic projects are making real progress across rural areas. Over 1 million jobs have been created, 154,000 households connected to electricity, nearly 500 digital sites rolled out, and major investment made in roads, housing, water, and agro-processing. Training and education have reached over 1 million rural learners, and 8 infrastructure projects are unlocking agricultural productivity. That shows clearly the delivery under the district development model and alignment with our rural development priorities. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Madlala.
Sibonga Sekela Somlomo. Minister, considering the establishment of farmer production support units for agricultural commodities under the Rural Infrastructure Development Program, and with specific reference to the controls and value for money measured prescribed by the PFMA, what ongoing monitoring mechanism has the department implemented to ensure that FPSU provided infrastructure and equipment continue to be used effectively, does not become underutilized? And tell us how you plan to involve local communities and beneficiaries farmers group in oversight.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Yes, the Farmer Production Support Unit is making a real impact in the farmers, in the small-scale farmers in the whole provinces. But also, Deputy Speaker, as things stand now, the FPSUs are no longer within the Department of Land Reform, but with the Department of Agriculture. But indeed, they are making real progress and are supporting the farmers. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Boshoff.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Through you to the Minister. The Department of Land Reform and Rural Development has the 2 aspects, and the land reform is quite a handful, with the administration of land ownership in South Africa and also restitution and redistribution, while the rural development overlaps with many other departments who all have the same function to perform. Wouldn't it be more efficient just to cut off the rural development part and focus on the land reform part of the department?
The Honourable Minister.
Point of order, Chair.
Honourable Member, what is your point of order?
Deputy Speaker, I apologize. I didn't want to interrupt my member, but there is a conversation here between the members that is so loud I could not hear my member's question. Could you please call them to order? Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Member, I was not aware that it was that loud. And I'm sure the Minister heard the question. He was sitting right next to the member. Minister, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. No, it won't be wise, Deputy Speaker, because as you know, this country is 80% rural. So we cannot just focus on the land reform without focusing on rural development. We need to focus on rural development. We need to create jobs in the rural areas. We need to make sure that we cap what we call urbanization of our people who come to the so-called big cities in search of jobs. We need to utilize the land that we have in the rural areas and make sure that we create jobs and make sure that we produce food. And therefore, rural development is very important, and it can be wise to do away with it. Thank you very much.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Van Wyk.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'll be taking the question on behalf of Honourable Van Wyk. Minister, given the recurring challenges of fragmented service delivery and overlapping mandates, what concrete mechanism has the department put in place to hold underperforming departments accountable in cases where poor coordination directly delays or undermine rural infrastructure rollouts? Thanks.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. As Deputy Speaker, of course, we have a forum that deals with all the departments, but ours is more coordination because we are not the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation, but we coordinate the rural development in all departments in the rural areas. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
The next question is number 888, which has been asked by the Honourable Nchingila to the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The question is, given that Budget Vote 39 indicated an allocation of substantial funding to industrial financing programs and support for entities such as the Industrial Development Corporation and the National Empowerment Fund, what specific measures has the Minister put in place to ensure that disadvantaged communities, including township and rural enterprises, directly benefit from the specified allocations rather than the funds being concentrated among established businesses? The Honourable Deputy Minister. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much. It's true, the questions are many. I wanted to get the correct reply. Honorable Nchingila, we try to ensure that disadvantaged communities benefit from our budget vote allocations, and specific measures have been implemented through the IDC, the NEF, and the general DTIC budget. Now, the IDC is advancing the township economy through targeted financial support, including discounted business products, social impact funding, and crisis relief initiatives such as the 200 million rands Energy Resilience Fund. Collaborative efforts like the 400 million rands Township Economy Partnership Fund with Gauteng Province further enhance this impact. To date, the IDC has approved over 637 million rands for more than 2,000 SMMEs in Gauteng, facilitating the creation and preservation of thousands of jobs among Black youth and women-owned enterprises. The NEF prioritizes investment in townships and rural businesses by focusing on growth sectors and innovative service platforms. Over the past 3 years, the NEF has invested approximately 638 million rands in 230 SMMEs, supporting over 5,200 jobs. Looking ahead, the NEF aims to invest 6 billion rands over the next 4 years, targeting the creation of 80,000 jobs and support for thousands of SMMEs and small-scale farmers through dedicated programs such as the Township and Rural Spaza Shop Fund. The DTIC, through the Industrial Parks Revitalization Program, has invested 823 million rands in infrastructure upgrades at 15 industrial parks within townships and rural areas, supporting over 64,000 jobs. Additionally, 899 million rands has been disbursed in incentives to more than 80 projects, prioritizing SMMEs, women and youth entrepreneurs, resulting in significant new job creation. These coordinated interventions demonstrate the department's commitment to ensuring that allocated funds stimulate inclusive economic growth, strengthen township and rural enterprises, and promote sustainable job creation in historically underserved communities. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Nchingila.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Can the Deputy Minister on behalf of the minister, confidently confirm that the GNU is overcoming the legacy of economic exclusion by integrating township and rural enterprises into the mainstream economy? If yes, give us examples of where this is happening and state the rand values which confirm the inroads that are being made. If there is none, why is this so? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I do suspect that I will have to reread what I just said now. Honorable Nchingila, and as I said to you, over the next 4 years, I did mention that the NEF alone aims to invest 6 billion rands, targeting the creation of 80,000 jobs. That's one of the interventions that I'm talking about. The second one is the Industrial Parks Revitalization Program. I went to East Tebe in KZN recently as part of that initiative. I will still be going to, what is it called? In Newcastle. I forget the name of the industrial park there. I am due to go there as well as part of this effort that we're doing. So we're trying to get the industrial parks, because they are located in townships, to be the heartbeat of economic rebirth in those spaces. So there's a lot of work that we're doing. I'm not going to exaggerate and say we are overcoming it in one fell swoop. The GNU is trying its level best to reignite the economy. There are marginal demonstrations of progress, as the Stats SA data yesterday demonstrated, but there's still a long way to go. In due course, we will be unveiling the industrial policy that we believe can take us forward to get the kind of impact that I imagine you have in mind. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mosikatsi.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Deputy Minister, since budget 39 does not
Honourable member on the platform, please mute yourself. Please proceed, member.
Thank you. Since budget 39 does not recapitalize the IDC and the NEF for industrial financing, as these development finance institutions are self-funding and thus leverage their balance sheet to provide the much-needed industrial finance, has this department ever considered working with the National Treasury to allow for financial support of the FDIs from the government so that the DIC and the NEF can provide a patient capital in order to allow Black-owned businesses time to build up capabilities and scale required, particularly in the concentrated product markets, and B, concessional funding in the form of lower interest rates and grants, as well as other non-financial support initiatives linked to the finance provided, especially given the challenge for Black-owned business.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank
Your
you.
time has expired. The Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Yes. In fact, the department is working with the IDC and the NEF currently on a proposal to National Treasury to expand the capacity of these development finance institutions to provide more patient capital and concessional funding. The department has also partnered with these DFIs on a specific program, including the Manufacturing Competitiveness Enhancement Program with the IDC and with the NEF to provide longer-term funding on concessional terms. This will build resilience of the enterprises supported and will allow them to grow. These funds allow the DFIs to blend with their financing, bringing down the cost of funding significantly. Thank you very much.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Chirwa Mpungose.
Thank you very much. Minister, access to affordable capital remains a big challenge in rural and township areas, particularly for Black youth who justifiably require support to thrive against systemic alienation. How is the National Empowerment Fund providing solutions in ensuring access to financial support, increasing access to information to those programs, and ensuring that the youth not only participate, but are successful in their pursuits? Please kindly provide at least one scenario-based evidence in your reply. Thank you.
Honourable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and thanks for the question, Honourable Chirwa. So one of the constraints that especially township and rural businesses face with respect to accessing capital has to do with what are termed non-financial capacity-related problems. So they will argue, for instance, that they fail to gain access to funding because at a technical business management level, they are unable to generate or provide audited financial statements, as an example. And they will argue that they do not have properly designed cash flow projections and so on. So one of the things that we've been insisting that the NEF, but not the NEF alone, including the ITC, must do is that they must try as much as possible when they receive applications to collate the data and provide non-financial support on capacity building for those SMMEs. An example, just now in Women's Month, the NEF in the East London office in the Eastern Cape went to provide a workshop of the sort that I'm explaining to a young women's Mañana program in Queenstown, organized by the Methodist Church. And that was on the instruction that we gave them. So we said they need to run these kinds of workshops on the ground so that they can assist these young entrepreneurs to overcome all the technical requirements that are usually provided as an explanation as to why they are not receiving capital. Of course, we are still thinly stretched on the ground. The NEF does not have a presence across all townships or across all small towns in South Africa, which means those who are not existing in cities will find it difficult to access that service. But we've been making a case to them that they need to expand their outreach program so that they could provide that technical support to these young entrepreneurs so that they could then meet the requirements that are technical for them to be considered for funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable T.M. Langa.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Deputy Minister, considering that many disadvantaged enterprises face structural barriers such as lack of collateral, compliance challenges, and limited financial literacy, what targeted interventions are being implemented alongside financing, such as mentorship, capacity building, and market access support to ensure these enterprises can actually utilize and sustain the allocated funds effectively? Thank you very much, House Chair.
You Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Langa, I will not repeat what I just said in response to Honorable Chira because that's the essence of the question that you are asking. I will try add a couple of things. You are correct when you say part of what leads to a lack of funding is essentially these technical capabilities that they don't have. So we've asked the DFIs to expand their outreach programs in providing workshops in these spaces on the basis of data they receive when these people are applying. But we've also proposed something else to them, especially to the ITC. We made the point that it may very well be that we need an aggregator model where particular capacitated enterprises could act as an anchor for market access for particular people. Let me make an example. If you are trying to build capacity for market access in agricultural output in KwaZulu-Natal or the Eastern Cape, it might very well be that it will be difficult for all small-scale farmers to farm on their own and take the products to market on their own. But if you have a medium-sized or big local aggregator that buys the product from all the small-scale farmers, it would be easier for that type of person to then sell the product to market. So that is one of the interventions that we've proposed the ITC must try to finance and get off the ground. Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Question 816 has been asked by the Honorable V.A. Nkosi to the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. The question is, considering the important work done by the Technology Innovation Agency in supporting young startup innovators, what specific mechanisms are in place in the TIA to support young innovators in their early stages, and how does the TIA ensure the sustainable growth of such young innovators? Honorable members, I have been informed that the Minister The Deputy Minister will be answering questions on behalf of the Minister. I will now recognize the Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable Nkosi, TIA, that is Technology Innovation Agency, has various interventions in the form of financial and non-financial support that we give to our young innovators. The full range of support that is given to these young innovators, it includes funding, skills development, mentorship and coaching, business development, incubation, access to innovation, access to infrastructure and technology development support. Some of the interventions that are given to these young innovators are programs like Grassroots Innovation Program. This program supports innovators that are operating outside formal systems of innovation by providing access to technology and business development support. And I'm mentioning that because we really say science leaves no one behind. So that is why we even have this program that we support those who are outside the system of innovation, the formal system. But also we've got Living Labs program, where this program also is created in spaces in township and rural areas to provide infrastructure and support for co-creating solutions for local challenges. And we have got about 13 living labs that we have established throughout the country, and the centers for innovation and entrepreneurship. 18 centers have been established thus far that presently we are supporting about 4,290 of those young innovators. So we have got quite a number of these programs. Also the Youth Technology and Innovation Program that is also supporting students from our universities and TVET colleges and unemployed graduates that aim at addressing systemic gaps and create integrated and enabling ecosystem in innovation. So you also ask us to say, what support are we giving to them? They receive support at the initial stages through the programs also that we are giving them. We've got the Technology Acquisition and Development Fund that promotes adoption of locally developed technologies. Also, we have got the Global Clean Tech Innovation Program, which is an accelerator for early stage clean tech startup and SMMEs, providing business support and investment readiness, technology development funds, and commercialization support fund. I'm just mentioning but the few. In addition, innovators are linked to broader ecosystem because that is what we are looking at, including the IDC, corporate customers, incubators, and accelerators through TIA's network of implementing partners. To strengthen transition pathways, TIA has also made an MOU with small business department. We ensure smooth progression from technology development funding into a broader business development support interventions. So those are some of the intervention and the support that we are giving to our youth innovators that are getting into the system. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Nkosi.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. How does the Technology Innovation Agency measure the success or impact of its support programs for the youth innovators over time? And what improvements to the program or can the program be made based on the performance? Thank you.
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. There are quite a number of mechanisms where we measure the impact. For an example, TIA looks at the knowledge products that are developed through the support provided to these youth innovators. Also, TIA support look at the support leverage by the youth innovators from other organizations in the form of financial and non-financial support that we are looking at. And also another means and mechanism through which TIA measure the impact. They look at the whole value chain, as to say, as I've said, we look at the whole value chain, such as mentorship, as to say how far that value chain has gone, and through science, technology, and engineering sciences that we have in the department. But what is even more important is to say, because they are innovators, we expect these innovations to get into the market to create enterprises. So TIA collects the information again about the revenue that has already been generated by these young innovators as they get into the enterprises. They collect the data as to say how much job opportunities have been created by these enterprises, and also manage, look at how they manage their products as they sell them, whether domestically or internationally. So it's quite a number of mechanisms where we say TIA is using to make sure that we measure the impact of what we have created, the funding that we have put in, and the throughput as to say how much the impact is when it comes to the job creation and those innovators being able to stand on their own. Thank you very much, Alchin.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mazon.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Deputy Minister, it's well known that South Africa has some of the finest innovators and young emerging scientists on the continent. I think you would agree with me that we all find it deeply concerning that the budgets that are allocated to science, technology, and innovation remain exceptionally small given the way the world is growing. How does the department ensure that fair, transparent, and equitable distributions of funds, resources, and general support from TIA be monitored and maintained to in fact ensure that no young innovator is ever left behind?
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Indeed, there are constraints when it comes to budgetary, the budget that is given, and we leverage even more in working with other departments and also the issues of private partnership. But the main question is to say, how do we make sure that the issue of fairness and transparency when it comes to TIA, making sure that we fund. There are a lot of, when it comes to oversight mechanisms that are being used, as the department, now and again, we sit and we have sessions with TIA where they come and brief us on what is happening, but also we take the parliamentary sessions where we come and account before the portfolio committee as part of the accountability mechanism that we are having, as to say, we make sure that at all times TIA is transparent, and when it comes to fairness, when we fund those young innovators, that is the platform that we are using. And above it all, really, whatever time and whenever the support that we get from the portfolio committee, it's always giving us guidance as to say, how far should we go and what is it that we can do? So we really appreciate that support. And so far, I think when it comes to transparency and when it comes to the fairness and accountability, that is what we have been doing thus far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Zondo.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honorable Deputy Minister, what targeted interventions are being implemented to decentralize TIA support so that youth innovators outside the urban hubs are not excluded in the process? Thank you.
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Honorable Zondo, TIA has got outreach programs where they go all out too, especially, as I've said, the main target is to make sure that even the youth in the township and rural areas, they are covered and they are taken care of. And we do have those outreach programs that we have, but above it all, I mentioned on the programs and the interventions that we are having, all those labs, the centers that I've just spoken about, most of them are in the rural areas where they are accessible even to the youth in our peripheral areas, rural and township areas, not only within the formal session, that not only in the institutions of higher learning or the TVET colleges. So by all means, that is where we are. Our programs are inclusive. We do reach out and they get out to make sure that even those who are out of the informal, out of the formal innovation system, they do get a chance to make sure that, because we strongly believe that science brings solutions to the challenges that our communities are faced with. So those are the programs that we open up to, and we find a lot of youth coming in to be assisted, and we do cover those youth, young innovators that seek assistance from the TIA programs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Hendricks.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. DM, Honorable DM. DM, can you provide a transparent breakdown of how much TIA funding has gone directly to youth-led innovation over the past 3 years? And how many of those recipients came from historically disadvantaged areas like your Eldos, Khayelitsha, Randfontein, Gelukdal, Kraaifontein, Regenpark, Tsakani, Nigel, Eden Park, Tutuza, Vosloorus, Kwatema, Drakenstein, and others?
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you.
Honorable House Chair, I think I would be lying if I can say from the top of my head, I can give honorable member that breakdown that he's needing. But I've taken care of, I will make sure that I get that statistics, because right now, really, as I'm saying, we're covering, we're working with the townships, but to come up with the concrete numbers, really, it will be very difficult for me to do that at the top of my head right now. But I promise we'll finish you with that response. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The next question is number 831, has been asked by Honorable S. Tambo to the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The question is, given the recent developments with the American export market, including the imposition of tariffs, which effectively mean that the African Growth and Opportunity Act no longer exists for the Republic, what measures will be taken to prioritize the development and expansion of the domestic market and job protection, and whether the department has a national economic security strategy to protect the economy against external shocks? The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. The department recognizes that the global trade environment is increasingly uncertain, and that reliance on a single external market poses risks to economic stability and job security.
No, it doesn't matter.
Honorable Supatri, can you please switch off your mic? Continue, DM.
While efforts to diversify international markets will continue, equal emphasis is being placed on expanding and deepening the domestic market as a driver of inclusive growth. However, the expansion of the domestic market would require increasing domestic consumption, which may be challenging under the current economic environment. But the long-term economic strategy of supporting economic growth and increased employment will contribute positively to increased demand in the domestic market. In the short term, the IDC, through its normal financing activities, and in particular through the management of the Manufacturing Competitiveness Enhancement Program Fund and the Export and Competitiveness Support Program that is currently under development, finances competitiveness improvements. These improvements will allow domestic producers to maintain or improve competitiveness relative to imports and potentially facilitate import replacement. This is an important response to the American tariffs because the expectation is that various countries will be pursuing alternative markets to the US, which could increase import competition in the domestic and regional markets. As part of the government's economic response package, the IDC is developing an export and competitiveness support program to address short to medium-term financing needs across all industries, including high-value agriculture. The DTIC and IDC are currently finalizing agreements to utilize a portion of the Manufacturing Competitiveness Enhancement Program funds, which are managed by the IDC. On the second question, the department does not oversee necessarily a national economic security strategy as asked. However, in collaboration with other economic departments, including the ones in the security cluster, the department is working on an economic strategy to revive growth and create jobs in South Africa. And that includes the classification of particular commodities as being vital for national security. It is intended to safeguard South Africa against external shocks such as abrupt trade policy changes, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical instability. The strategy focuses on diversifying trade markets, strengthening South Africa's industrial base, securing supply of critical goods such as food and pharmaceuticals, deploying trade defense instruments where required. In addition, there are discussions within government on classifying certain minerals as national security assets. The General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, Articles 19 and Articles 21, provide policy space for government to act on an emergency basis in response to global structural challenges and geopolitics. The impending US tariffs threaten economic growth, industrial performance, and local jobs, thus necessitating the need to finalize the regulations and gazetting the act for commencement. In this regard, I also request Parliament to consider invoking the current Public Procurement Act and regulations to declare autos, steel, and health products as strategic commodities in interest of national security and public interest. That will exempt organs of state, particularly SOEs, from the provisions of the Act in order for them to procure those locally manufactured products at the right price. These measures are designed to reduce vulnerability, protect jobs, and build resilience in the South African economy. Thank you very much, Madam House Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Tambo.
Thank you very much, Chair. I beg your indulgence to speak sitting down. I've got a challenge with my eyes.
Continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you to the Deputy Minister. I would have hoped he would be at the National General Council of the NCA Youth League, which I'm told is resolving against a particular regulation being stipulated by the Department of Trade and Industry, but it's a conversation for another day. What is the projected economic impact of the newly imposed tariffs by the United States of America on South Africa, and the breakdown of AGOA particularly, but also which areas of trade do you anticipate will be harshly affected by the breakdown of AGOA and of course the introduction of these tariffs? And if there will be job losses that you anticipate, to what extent do you expect those job losses to be in terms of numerical figures and areas of employment? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. So it's a bit of a complicated answer in this manner. The 30%, okay, let's start with AGOA. Not all South Africa's products entered the US market under AGOA. So even if AGOA were to not be renewed, you say it has collapsed, but even if it were not to be renewed, which is a real possibility, it is not all the South African goods that will be affected by AGOA. Most of them enter under the most favored nation conditions of the WTO. Now, there are some sectors that would be affected more than others. Let's take an example for the shipbuilding subsector. So South Africa sells a lot of its yachts. It builds yachts in South Africa and sells them to the US because the US has a particular social class that buys these. Now, if you can't get them into the US, you can't sell them to you and I. We don't have the scale to buy those. So a sector such as that one will probably be decimated a great deal. The auto sector, the chunk of our auto products are destined for different markets than the US. Yes, there are some volumes that will be affected, so the effect is not going to be as dramatic as you would imagine. But some sectors such as, say, wine, citrus to some extent, they will have differentiated effects. So for instance, some of them say we cannot survive a 30% tariff, but we think we can survive a 15% tariff. So that gives us room to provide interventions that can lower the effective tariff rate to about 15%. So it's not going to be the bloodbath that is usually projected, that it's going to be bye-bye South African economy tomorrow. No, it's a bit of a dynamic situation. And even with the 30% tariff, there are some tariff lines that are exempted. So if you looked at the schedule that the US brought, in mining, they provided exemption. So the 30% does not apply to some lines in mining. That is related to their interest initially proposed, but you still have to save.
Honorable Deputy Minister, your time has expired. The second supplementary
Thank you, Deputy
question will be asked by Honorable Musikadzi.
Thank you, House Chair. Deputy Minister, whilst the government has implemented a response to the 30% unilateral tariffs imposed by the US on South Africa's export market, on 5 key elements, including but certainly not limited to continuing engagements with the US to secure a deal and reduce the tariffs, diversification of exports to alternative markets, and economic response package to vulnerable companies and workers, and trade defense against import search and dumping. What role will the department play in unlocking new trade opportunities for South African products, in cautioning the domestic economy against exogenous trade shocks, that the objective of realizing the 3 trillion in export over a medium term can be realized? Thank you, House Chair.
Deputy Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. It's quite correct. The recent trade policy shifts by the United States have accelerated the need to further diversify South African exports. Finding new markets and diversifying trade is important for exporters and the country to provide resilience and the ability to mitigate against shocks that affect international trade. Diversifying trade is not only about finding alternative markets, but also to explore new markets which present growth opportunities for South African products, thereby offering more and diverse markets, also supporting increased exports. The diversification of South African exports, including a response to sectors affected by US tariffs, is guided through a butterfly approach, which prioritizes the implementation of the AfCFTA and unlocking opportunities in the rest of Africa as the foundation of our global engagement. The wings of the butterfly represent additional export initiatives in the rest of the world, focusing on leading and established markets, such as the European Union, the United Kingdom, and North Asia, as well as new and emerging market opportunities such as in Latin America, the Middle East, and the Look East approach, which also considers ASEAN countries and Turkey. Through pursuing export opportunities in these diverse markets, not only could new markets be explored and developed, but it would also better position the country to mitigate against global trade shocks. Implementing the butterfly strategy and unlocking opportunities in diversified markets requires a whole-of-government approach focused on increasing capacity of South Africa's enterprises to export, including skills for exporting, penetrating African export markets beyond the SADC region, promotion and marketing of South African goods and services globally, economic diplomacy and the professionalization of the foreign service, resolving trade barriers faced by South African businesses, and improved trade finance instruments to fund our exporters. Thank you very much, Madam House Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Masego.
Madam Chair, point of order.
My apologies. I think it's Honorable Ndluli.
It's Honorable Chance.
Thank you, House Chair. Yes, Honorable Ndluli is actually overseas at the moment, so he's asked me to stand in for him. Deputy Minister, Mr. Tambo's question relates to trade vulnerabilities as much as anything else. And obviously one of the mitigating measures against suffering from trade vulnerabilities is to have your country represented extensively overseas in the missions that we occupy in other countries. Now, in April, we received information that over 30 of those positions were vacant. And the minister has made a commitment, I'm sure you're aware of it, to fill those positions as a matter of urgency. I think he listed 8 preference countries initially. So could you please just tell the House what is the status of that? how many of those positions have been filled? And what is the sort of estimated date by which all of those positions will be filled?
The Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. You are correct, Honorable Chance. The minister did make that undertaking, and you are correct that it would be good to improve the presence of South African foreign economic representatives, and we've already done that. So part of the reason we had not filled them was during the period of budget consolidation, those posts had been frozen. So we needed to first have an agreement with the National Treasury to reallocate money to the DTIC in order to fund those posts. That's one. The second one is to cooperate with DECO to communicate with the countries that these people are coming. So we've already done our internal strategy for that. And you are correct, we said 8 priority missions in the short term, and that has already been processed. It is going to be approved by cabinet, and then they will be released to go out of the country. And that includes senior officials from the department who've done this work over many years, and some of them are at a DDG level of ranking. And then after that, we will include another number. It could be 10 in the next year until we reach that 30. Those markets include, as I was saying, the butterfly strategy explores the established markets, which is the United States, the European Union, the UK, China, but it also includes countries such as Ethiopia and Kenya and so on in Africa, where there is potential growth for South African exports. So that work is underway, but we needed to be sure that we have the budget to justify those deployments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Nchingila.
Thanks, House Chairperson. Now, the MK Party has noted the GNU's failure to manage diplomatic and trade tensions with the US and other economies, but also noting that our manufacturing sector is facing intense global competition, which necessitates a focus on long-term sustainability and competitiveness. So what measures is the minister considering to increase the economy's productive capacity of high-value goods and services? What mechanisms are in place to enhance market access for South African products globally and promoting regional integration?
The Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. It is not entirely true that we failed to manage the diplomatic relations with the United States. The negotiations are still ongoing. It's a difficult negotiation, but it's still ongoing. Honorable members must separate between blockbuster statements and what actually happens. There's a lot of blockbuster posturing that you can pick up, but we keep talking to them. So that work is underway. And as I was saying on the butterfly strategy, you are correct when you speak about high value goods, and it's an important point to make. South Africa earns a lot of its foreign earnings from exporting high value goods, such as automotives. So we don't have the option of assuming that we can do without having them. But what we need to do is to try find alternative markets that can absorb those. But that also comes with its own difficulties. I was making the example about the yacht, for instance. The United States can buy something close to 1,000 yachts a year. Let's make an example. But even if you find an alternative market, say in the Gulf countries, they might not be willing to buy 1,000, but maybe buy 500, which means you've lost a volume of 500 that was bought elsewhere. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but we're doing all that we can to penetrate some of the markets that have high potential, such as in the Gulf country and in the ASEAN region. And I can promise you, Honorable Nchingila, we will have market access even to the United States. It might not be as it was last year, but we will maintain that market as well, and we will increase our footprint into other markets as well. And as I was saying, we're also trying to explore the possibility of increasing our export volumes into the African continent. But the risk is on the high value goods. If people are buying South African sedans made in East London from Mercedes-Benz, you need to know that not everyone everywhere can afford a sedan. So you need to go negotiate in a market where there is buying power that can replace an American buyer. And countries like that, you also must assume that the social taste must be the same. So there must be a social culture where people like buying a Mercedes-Benz, for instance. It's a bit of a difficult one to perfect, but we'll get it right over time. Thank you very much.
Deputy Minister, thank you, but your time had expired. Though it was a very interesting discussion. We move honorable members to question 871, which has been asked by Honorable M.A. Mwango to the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development. The question is, considering the Minister's rural development mandate, what steps has he taken to institutionalize monitoring and evaluation systems across his department's integrated rural development projects to systematically assess their effectiveness on the ground, and what clear outcome indicators and baselines has he established to track progress in rural areas? The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. House Chairperson, the department, in collaboration with 9 provincial governments and national sector departments, has developed performance indicators for monitoring, evaluation, and reporting on the implementation of the comprehensive rural development program through the 6 pillars of the integrated rural development sector strategy. Annual performance reports are compiled with multi-sectoral contributions from provinces and departments. The 2024-2025 report tracked progress across all pillars, while the 2025 report will be aligned to the 3 priorities of the 7th administration and the Cabinet-approved 2024-2029 medium-term development plan. To enhance systematic oversight, the National Rural Development Intergovernmental Relations Forum, convened quarterly by the department, reviews implementation across all 44 districts and block service delivery bottlenecks and ensure intergovernmental accountability. In addition, the department has appointed the Human Science Research Council to conduct a phased rural development baseline study. This will update the last comprehensive survey conducted by Stats SA in 2002, build on the 2013 evaluation of rural nodes, and provide a new evidence base for rural development indicators. Outcome indicators and baselines have been developed across the 6 IRDSS pillars and are tracked through annual reporting. These include Pillar 1, infrastructure development, access to electricity, water, sanitation, roads, housing, and digital connectivity. Pillar 2, economic development and job creation, enterprise and cooperative support, investment attraction, and local industrialization. Pillar 3, education and skills development, sector-aligned training to build rural industrial economies. Pillar 4, basic municipal services, water, waste management, electricity access, and rural road construction. Pillar 5, land, agrarian reform, and tenure security, progress in land administration, reform, and restitution with constraints from limited budget allocations. And Pillar 6, social, community, and human development, rural safety, crime prevention, and delivery of social infrastructure such as schools, health, and recreation facilities. Thank you very much, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mwango.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Arising from your response, Honorable Minister, can you provide examples of any recent integrated rural development projects where these monitoring and evaluation systems have already produced measurable results, noting these insights to inform adjustments to improve project effectiveness?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, I'll try and attempt to answer, but I'm not sure the question is almost the same as the first question. But Honorable Chair, as I have indicated, that we are coordinating all the departments of the government in rural areas. And I've also indicated that we also have the quarterly report, and we've also raised here today that we also have forums where we monitor everything that is happening within the rural space. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mrara.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Minister, rural communities are still trapped or constrained by the legacy of underdevelopment. Hence, socio-economic infrastructure and technological advancement for economic productivity remains generally poor. To reverse this trend, government should aggressively invest in catalytic intervention to improve the rural economic outlook. In this regard, can the minister indicate what concrete or tangible accelerated infrastructure, like your roads, energy, water, etc., roll out plans to stimulate economic productivity? And what are the innovative technological infrastructure interventions that are implemented to ignite rural economic growth and improve living standards? Welcome.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable Chair, on infrastructure development and maintenance and investment, we have connected electricity to 136,026 households connected and 18,445 connected to non-grid. Digital access, 494 sites connected to reduce the digital divide. Jobs over 1 million created via Public Employment Services, National Pathway Management Network, UIF, and Compensation Fund. Housing, 14,015 housing units built and 2,700 structured upgraded. Agriculture and roads, 80 infrastructure projects implemented, including irrigation schemes, roads, and bridges. Research and agro-processing, 53 R&D projects, agro-processing facilities established for cannabis and marula products, and a whole lot of them, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Masego.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, the department has spent billions on rural development since 1994, yet poverty in rural areas remains stubbornly high. Communities often tell us that rural projects look good on paper, but they don't always see the difference in their daily lives. The question is, how do you justify this disconnect between expenditure and real impact? And does your monitoring systems include independent verification to avoid marking your own homework?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Honorable House Chairperson, this country remains rural. And all I can say is that the rural development needs more funding. In fact, for us to be able to develop rural areas, we need more billions to make sure that we're developing the rural areas. We need more mandate, not only coordinate the rural development, but we must also implement the infrastructure in the rural areas. And as I've said, there are mechanisms in place for monitoring as we are doing these quarterly reports, coordinating with all other developed departments. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mkotam.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, the program of rural development shows the serious lack of commitment by the so-called GNU to tackle the challenges of rural development. The legacy of colonialism and apartheid is acutely felt by the rural sector. Our people were denied land and put in barren pieces of land to force them into working for the white sector of the society. The department has allocated only 891 million for rural development. And the MK Party government will allocate much bigger budget to catapult our people out of the rural poverty they are suffering. Minister, this ridiculous small allocation, we can conclude that there is no rural development program, but window dressing.
Honorable Mkotam, your time has expired.
Rural coordination.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable House Chairperson, we cannot conclude that there is no rural development because there is rural development. What we can only say is that the budget to develop rural areas is not enough. I am not sure if the rural development or the apartheid of Lagos has anything to do with the GNU. But all I know is that we really want more funding so that we develop the rural areas. I've already indicated that if we can have more budget, it is not going to be only the question of coordinating and monitoring. We must also implement. So we must have that conversation, at least for now, with the Treasury that is ruled, that is under another minister who is not from MK. We will see the budget of the MK when they are in charge of the country. For now, we need budget to go. For now, we need budget. We need
Honorable
budget.
members, please can we listen to the response?
We need budget from the Minister of Finance that is here today, so that we add to what we have, and then we develop our rural areas. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honorable members, we move to question 842 that has been asked by Honorable M.A. Nana to the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development. The question is about the detailed reasons that Regulation 18 was amended to make the LLL form mandatory when minutes of the Deeds Registries Regulation Board chaired by the Chief Registrar at the time clearly stated that the specified form was to remain voluntary. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The Deeds Registries Regulation Board at its meeting on 10th October 2018 resolved that completion of Form LLL would be voluntary. The Deeds Registries Amendment Act 2024, Act number 20 of 2024 came into operation on 10 December 2024. This act provided, among others, for the amendment of Section 10 of the Deeds Registries Act 1937 by empowering the minister to make regulations pertaining to the manner and form in which personal information relating to race, gender, citizenship, and nationality of landowners in South Africa may be collected for statistical and land audit purposes. After the amendment of Section 10, the board at its meeting on 12 February 2025 again discussed the Regulation 18 and Form LLL, where it was unanimously resolved that the said regulation and form be adopted in its current form. Thank you very much, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I have been informed that Honorable L.M. Masego will take charge of the first question on behalf of Honorable M.A. Nana in accordance with Rule 13710A. I now recognize Honorable Masego.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, given that the records obtained through PAIA to confirm the form was initially agreed to be voluntary, will the minister disclose when did that decision change to be compulsory and on what legal basis your department relied on to enforce that change? I thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Let me repeat that after the amendment of Section 10, the board and its meeting on 12 February 2025 again discussed Regulation 18 and Form LLL, where it was unanimously resolved that the said regulation and form be adopted in its current form. Also, House Chairperson, this question is coming in this House for the second time, and I'm giving the very same answers, that we are going to ask for people to register their gender, their race, because we want to know who owns the land in South Africa. We want to know who owns what in South Africa. We want to do the land audit so that we know exactly the land in South Africa. Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Madlala.
Sibonga sihlalo. Mhlonishwa ohloniphekile. Uyazi yini ukuthi make wavumela ukuthi kushintshwe leli
Thank you very
form?
much, Chairperson. Honorable member, do you know that
IT, we don't need an interpreter for now. No, continue, Honorable Madlala.
Udla isikhathi sami. Mhlonishwa ohloniphekile. Uyazi yini make wavumela ukuthi kushintshwe le triple L form? Kuyobushayela isibikili sokugcina sokuthengiswa komhlaba wabantu eSouth Africa. Ngoba make lashintshwa awusezukubona ukuthi umhlaba usubuye kangakanani kubantu banikazi baba besoswe ngokungemthetho. So kusobala ukuthi make wavumela ukuthi kushintshwe la okusho ukuthi minister nawe uthengisa ngomhlaba. Unesandla sokuthi kulahleke umhlaba ngoba ngesabona lutho umhlaba wonke usuzobuyela kubantu abamhlophe kanti njengamanje sisalwela ukuthi awubuye lo mhlaba abawutshontshayo. Ngiyabonga.
The Honorable Minister.
Honorable Madlala, uyandi address awunibuza imibuzo. Kodwa manje kucelele into yokuba azikho indications zongathi ndingawutshintsha lo mthetho. Kuba kaloku kufuneka siyazile ukuba ngubani onomhlaba uphethe umhlaba eSouth Africa. Kufuneka siyazi into umhlaba uthengiswa Madlala. Umhlaba ungcwele. Ukwenza into yoba siyazi umuntu akazuthi kube ngapha eAmerica abone iadvert yomhlaba eSouth Africa afake idollars agqwabe nomhlaba eSouth Africa. Kwamanye amazwe umhlaba uthengiswa and siyawusondela kuloo nto. Nkosi.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Van Wyk.
Honorable Chair, I'll be taking charge of the question on behalf of.
Continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you, thank you. Honorable Minister, can you provide a full-time timeline and identify any external pressures, consultation or lobbying efforts that may have influenced the abrupt shift from a voluntarily to a mandatory requirement despite the board's stated position?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The stated position of the board was taken in 2018, and the subsequent meetings resolved that people must declare their race, their sex, and then we must know who they are. The idea, Honorable Member, is to exactly know the land that we have in South Africa. The idea is exactly to know, for example, as the department, we are undertaking a lead audit right now. How are we going to know if we don't know who owns what? By the way, Honorable Member, even if you can go to the bank today, you will still ask your race. You will still ask your sex. Even if you can go to Home Affairs, they will still ask you, and there's a form there. You are always feeling this. What is it that people are hiding? I hope we are not trying to run away from embarrassing statistics that land is still owned by our previous oppressors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Ghana.
Nakenza Mtramashtu. Olobje, as you say, this question is not coming for the first time. It's the second time now, and likely it has also been submitted as a written question. I want to check with you. So since this triple L form came into effect, has there been instances where the department has been threatened with legal action? And if so, where did it come from? Which provinces in our country are spearheading or are at the forefront of not complying with this triple L form from the TITS office?
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. Honorable Ghana, I'm not aware of any pressure for now from whether external or internal people about this form. All I know is that currently everyone is filling the form and nobody is complaining about it. So for now, nobody has come to me and complain about the form. Let's reach the bridge when we get there. Ingomo.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we move to question 818, has been asked by Honorable S. Mahlangu to the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure. The question is about the main findings from internal deliberations as the National Assembly awaits the final formal report on the 800 million of public procurement irregularities, governance failures, and regulatory breaches related to the pressure swing absorption plant project. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. As I delivered the outcome on the 29th of July, the procurement process followed by the IDT around the PSA oxygen plant was deemed irregular in that the National Department of Health officials and IDT officials irregularly participated in the bid adjudication process when they were only supposed to be observers. This led to the bid committee being improperly constituted at the beginning. Also, the SAPRA requirement was excluded in the bid documents, despite this being a requirement in terms of the MOA and also, of course, DOH requirements as well. Further, the pre-tender documents were not submitted to the Department of Health for approval by the IDT as per the MOA. Based on the investigation conducted by PwC, one of the entities appointed by the IDT, namely a company called Bulking, was awarded projects far beyond their CIDB grading threshold. It was discovered that Bulking were given 428 million rand in contracts as opposed to the maximum value of 200 million rand that they should have received. There was also evidence that Bulking sought to outsource the bulk of their contract work to Brutes Airwork, and it is also worth highlighting that Bulking did not have permission to enter into a joint venture, and Brutes were not even aware that their license was being used. Furthermore, it was also revealed that Bulking was allowed to submit bid documents post the closing date of the tender, which is irregular and points to unethical conduct. More shockingly was that the records of the bid meetings were so poorly kept and that there were no electronic versions or recordings of the meetings that were submitted. During the tendering stage, the revised budget escalated from 253 million to over 800 million rand based on the IDT MBAC recommendations. Bulking, despite evidently not having the capacity to deliver the project, received the largest allocation of 428 million rand. And the justification for disproportionate allocation of the projects provided by the National Department of Health officials in price variance by the two entities post the price negotiation process. This is even though Bulking did not have the SAPRA license to complete this project to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Mahlangu.
Thank you very much, House Chair. To the Minister, given the severity and the seriousness of the basis for the forensic investigation into the said procurement irregularities, does the Minister believe that the procurement processes, financial control, and other relevant safeguards are sufficiently robust and not vulnerable to bribes and collusion? If not, why? And hopefully the Minister won't be lazy in answering my question this time. Can he answer my question? Stop being lazy. I know he might undermine me, but can he take this platform very serious, please, Minister? Thank you very much, sir.
The Honorable Minister.
Well, at least the member asked a question that deserves now a proper answer. Chairperson, the answer is self-evident that the entire procurement process that exists in the IDT was corrupted. For Ms. Malaka to specifically say to Mr. Louis Marburg that if you take this money and you give me the name of a contractor that you would like to receive contracts, I will make that happen. That is self-evident that the entire supply chain management process was captured in the IDT, and that the audit and risk and management processes were not being sufficiently upheld by the previous board. You will also recall, Honourable Member, that one of the problems that we had with the previous board is that the Audit and Risk Committee was not sitting, and I don't even think it was properly functional at the time. So it speaks to a big problem, and that's why I've suggested to the board that all contracts should be verified and audited that were provided or awarded under Ms. Malaka's tenure, to ensure that this sort of thing is not more widespread. Now, that's why I have provided immense support to the board to ensure that they are able to conduct their role and responsibility. And I think that we should all get behind the board for the work that they are doing, and we should stop these sorts of sniping at the board, continually advancing fake stories about people's lack of qualifications, their nationalities, and so on, as we've seen in the public domain and also, unfortunately, in Parliament. I do think, Chair, that we can also use the IDT as an example of a great turnaround story. And I fully believe that the IDT is a good vehicle to be able to deliver social infrastructure where it doesn't necessarily make economic sense or private sector-led sense to deliver those projects. So we are doing everything that we can in the
Honourable
department to support
Minister,
them, and I'm absolutely
your time
confident
is
that
expired.
they will be successful in their turnaround.
Thank you. The second supplementary question will be asked by Honourable Matigizela.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, I must firstly commend you for your decision to commission this report. Despite the view by some in this House that the allegations lacked substance, your determination to get to the bottom of this has shown otherwise. Now, the alleged attempt by the suspended CEO of the IDT, a sign of wrongdoing and acknowledgement of guilt on her part and her co-conspirators. Minister, I heard your answer earlier when Member Path was asking you about the disciplinary processes. But this entity is Schedule 2 entity, and you are responsible for it. Will you make sure, Minister, that you put measures in place to fast-track disciplinary processes, which must be parallel to the court processes, so that this matter doesn't take forever, as we have seen with other matters in government? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Madikizela. Look, I think anyone who believed or claimed publicly or otherwise that these allegations lack substance clearly, wasn't reading what was going on and what was being provided. And so luckily I didn't listen to that advice, and we decided to implement the forensic investigation, despite a fierce fight back to try and derail us from that, despite refusal by some officials within the IDT to present documents. We forged through regardless. With regards to the status of Ms. Malaka, I absolutely support your view, Honourable Member, that this is not something that can drag out for an indefinite amount of time. I think that the evidence, we've seen it on TV. We also obviously have to respect internal HR processes and labour legislation. But my message to the board has been that they have got to expedite this as quickly as possible, so that A, we are able to draw a line under this issue, but also B, that the IDT can get on with its job and its mandate, which is delivering social infrastructure to communities across this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Ngumalo.
Thank you, Speaker. Before I put my question on, I need to address something here to set the record straight. It is not true that the MK party has been silent on the IDT matter. So, given the systematic failures at the IDT board level that allowed this procurement to proceed despite multiple red flags, what constitutional and legal reforms are being considered to strengthen the fiduciary duties and criminal liability of public entity trustees? And how will these reforms address the structural issues that enable this breakdown in corporate governance? I thank you.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. I think the member might be possibly right in that MK wasn't entirely silent on this issue, because they actually fought me on many of the issues on the reforms I was trying to implement. They wanted the status quo to remain. And that's why we intervened in the dysfunctional manner in which the previous board was operating in. The previous chairperson was not entitled to be the chairperson because you cannot be a ministerial appointee and be the chairperson at the same time. The deed of trust is very clear on that. There had been a breakdown in oversight of the Audit and Risk Committee. And so that's why we filled those 5 vacancies. We were taken to court. We won with punitive costs against those NGOs, which I think were also being used for nefarious purposes, if I'm honest. And we then took to Cabinet a new constituted board that would actually be in place for the full term. We've appointed a very good chairperson, or she was elected, at least I should say, by the board and the deputy chair. And we have an acting CEO, Ms. Abrahams, who is one of the most competent public servants that you would ever come across. She is fiercely dedicated to her job and is absolutely committed to institutionalizing reforms of transparency, audit and risk, making sure that procurement is done correctly as well. And you'll also be happy to know, Honourable Member, in the department, just last week, Cabinet approved the new DDG for supply chain management in our department, someone who has immense experience in SOEs, in the provincial treasury in KwaZulu-Natal. And so she will also be advising the entity on steps that they will take in terms of governance, transparency, and procurement going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Zibi.
I can some Honorable Gal.
Okay, proceed.
I would say with this on behalf of Honorable Zib. Minister, you have painted the picture insofar as the previous board and the officials that were at the IDT. That is very troubling. But the name that the name that has come up as the CEO is the first in line. Were there board members and other officials that the investigations revealed were involved in all the mess that was going on in the IDT? And to what scale, or how many people are we talking about here? Because earlier on, you had said that you are hoping that the suspended CEO might very well enter into a deal to reveal the other names. As the investigations reveal the other names that you know of, that you don't have to wait for the suspended CEO to reveal in case she makes a deal with the NPA.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Garner. That's a good question. You know, these sorts of things don't take place in a vacuum. And what we have seen is in the report as well, also someone from SEM was involved, and there were also officials within the Department of Health. I obviously don't have any control over that, but the board is currently investigating everyone in that pipeline of supply chain management, because that's where the real problem exists. And so I don't want to publicly prejudice what those investigations are, but just as we were transparent in releasing to the extent that we could the details around this report, we have done so. And also let me add, Honorable Garner, that as soon as the internal HR processes are completed around Ms. Malaka, and the Hawks have completed their investigation, we will then release the full version of this report. And we've been absolutely upfront about that, because we must get to the bottom of ensuring that we have public servants that serve our entities and serve our departments that are committed to delivering value for money and delivering services to people that they are entrusted to. And there's no greater service in my mind than what the IDT does in delivering schools and clinics to communities that so desperately need them. And that's why it's important that we get this right. That's why it's important that we get behind this entity, and we ensure that it succeeds from the place of where it's come from. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, we move to question 887, which has been asked by Honorable T.S. Mjadu to the Minister of Science. Honorable members, what is the problem? Oh, sorry. You see, some of us are here to work. We don't necessarily. I didn't know that time was so important. Apologies, honorable members. But yes, the time allocated for questions has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed in Hansard. We then move to the last item on the order paper is the statement by the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities on a call to caution women on unsolicited foreign job offers. I now recognize the Honorable Minister.
Honorable House Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans, good evening. Let me begin by appreciating the opportunity to bring this ministerial statement to the House today. Human trafficking is one of the gravest threats facing our people, young people, persons with disabilities and children, women in particular, and so it is our duty to confront it directly. Honorable members, this vile crime is no longer distant. It is here in our streets, in our communities, and on the phones of our young people through unsolicited offers of opportunity. Families and communities have raised a growing outcry, particularly about suspicious recruitment on social media platforms such as TikTok, where traffickers disguise exploitation as jobs, scholarships, or modeling opportunities. The seriousness of this threat is not abstract. Recently, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation confirmed the safe return of 23 South Africans who had been trafficked under false pretenses and forced into cybercrime operations. Their ordeal is a painful case in point, showing how quickly hope can be turned into exploitation. The recent campaign promoted on social media by influencers offering young South African women jobs is the latest example. Honorable members, the United Nations define human trafficking as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of people through force, fraud, or deception with the aim of exploiting them. The United Nations Secretary General, Excellency Antonio Guterres, reminded us in 2018, I quote, he said, "Human trafficking is a vile crime that feeds on inequalities, instability, and conflict. It is a gross violation of human rights and human dignity," unquote. The UN's 2040 report on trafficking in persons confirms that these crimes thrive where poverty, inequality, and unemployment are high. Our continent carries a heavy burden because traffickers exploit these structural vulnerabilities. Methods are also changing. Criminal syndicates now use new technology, artificial intelligence, and fake online profiles to make scams look real, adapting faster than global communities or justice systems can respond. Here at home, the picture is stark. Poverty, weakened livelihoods, and high unemployment push people into unsafe migration pathways. In the last quarter of the 2024-25 financial year alone, 95 suspects were arrested for human trafficking offenses. Between 2013-14 and 2022-23, kidnapping cases increased by over 150%, making it one of the fastest growing violent crimes in our country. Honorable members, this is our problem statement. Human trafficking is here, it is evolving, and it is exploiting the vulnerabilities of our people. So the next question would be, what does human trafficking actually look like on the ground? Well, it hides in plain sight. It is often disguised as opportunity, and that is why we must know its symptoms. The first danger is in recruitment. Victims are approached with unsolicited dream job or study abroad offers with high salaries for vague roles, urgent departures, or recruiters who refuse to share a proper address or contact. They may demand passport or ID copies upfront or request processing fees. Increasingly, these approaches happen on WhatsApp, Instagram, or TikTok, sometimes even using deep fake videos or stolen photos to look convincing. The second danger is where it happens. The recruitment often takes place in familiar spaces, such as shopping malls, taxi ranks, bus depots, campuses, border posts, and nightlife districts. Women, youth, children, and persons with disabilities are especially targeted with false promises of caregiving jobs, sports scholarships, modeling contracts, or assisted placements. Travel and housing traps are the next stage. Victims may be issued one-way tickets, find their itineraries changed suddenly, or have someone else hold their documents. On arrival, they are collected by strangers and taken to accommodation they did not choose, where their movement is tightly restricted. Workplace control is another marker. Wages are withheld, hours are excessive, conditions are unsafe, and debt is created that never decreases. Some victims are coerced into sexual exploitation or forced into criminal activity, often moved between sites without explanation. Behavioral symptoms can be noticed by families and communities. A trafficked person may appear fearful or coached, unable to explain where they live or work, or show signs of exhaustion and untreated illnesses. Often someone else speaks for them or controls their movement. If you observe this behavior, even on suspicion, report it. You may save someone's life. Online red flags are widespread. Adverts may have no real company name, suspicious email domains, or exaggerated promises such as earn many dollars daily, no experience needed. Recruiters may refuse video calls, pressure secrecy, or request sensitive data like IDs, bank details, or explicit images. These are not isolated incidents. They are consistent patterns. If we can name them, our families, communities, and young people will be better prepared to protect themselves and one another. Honorable members, if we know what trafficking looks like, the next step is to protect ourselves and our families by verifying opportunities before we act. Fellow South Africans, there are legitimate and authentic international pathways available to our people, particularly young people. For example, the Stipendium Hungaricum Scholarship with Hungary provides around 100 fully funded places annually for South Africans for study at bachelor's, master's, and PhD levels. The Chinese government scholarship offers tuition, accommodation, and living stipends under a bilateral agreement managed through the Department of Higher Education and Training. The Solar Mama Training Project, managed under a bilateral agreement between India and the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. African Union Volunteer Corps gives young Africans the chance to contribute to development projects while gaining professional experience verified through the AU and DERCO. And there are other opportunities between South African government and South African departments, as well as other government in the world. These opportunities are safe because they are publicly advertised, administered through official government channels, and verifiable on recognized portals. So let me be clear, we are not discouraging South Africans from seeking work, study, or cultural opportunities abroad. Mobility is part of development. But before we leave our shores, we must pause, check, and verify. So pause. If an offer looks too good to be true, do not rush. Verify. Search the company or institution on official registries. In South Africa, check the CIPC or the Department of Employment and Labor. Abroad, use government labor authority lists and online searches with scam or complaints. Use official channels. Contact the nearest South Africa's embassy, high commission, or consulate. They can confirm employers, validate contracts, and explain visa categories. DERCO's Travel Smart app that can be downloaded and the registration of South Africans abroad service make this easier. In South Africa, many countries have embassies or missions. You are free to contact them so as to verify the legitimacy of the offer. Insist on contract. A legitimate employer provides a written contract in a language you understand, detailing duties, hours, salary, and location. Have it reviewed by a trusted lawyer, labor officer or office, or family elder before committing. Never pay to be employed. Legitimate employers never employers cover recruitment or visa costs. Requests for recruitment fees or deposits are a red flag. Protect your documents. Do not send passports, IDs, or certificates over unsecured channels. Use watermarked copies. Never surrender your passport to a recruiter. Share your plans. Give a trusted person your travel details, addresses, and contacts. Set check-in times and agree on a safe word in case of danger. If you must meet a recruiter, do so in a public place. Take your own transport. Decline instant offers in malls, taxi ranks, or bus depot. Fellow South Africans, these checks and balances are not abstract. They are life-saving habits. A legitimate opportunity will withstand scrutiny. A fraudulent one will not. So, honorable members, knowing the red flags and practicing checks is only part of the response. We must ensure that clear, accessible systems of support are in place when someone is at risk or has already fallen victim. For individuals and families, help is available. In emergencies, call SAPS on 10-111. The South African National Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 0800-222-777, operates 24/7 in partnership with NGOs and provides confidential assistance. The Department of Social Development coordinates shelters, psychosocial services, and reintegration support for survivors. DERCO's embassies, high commissions, and consulates are available to South Africans abroad for emergency support and safe repatriation when citizens are trapped. At a governmental level or government level, our response is guided by the Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act, which criminalizes trafficking in all forms and mandates victims' protection. South Africa is also a signatory to the UN Palermo Protocol, the ILO Forced Labor Conventions, and the AU Ouagadougou Action Plan, which commits us to prevention, protection, and prosecution. Domestically, we are intensifying operations through South African Police Service, the Hawks, the NPA, Home Affairs, Labor, and Social Development. These efforts include joint investigations to track recruiters, freezing assets of syndicates, cyber investigations to disrupt online recruitment, and stronger border controls with victim identification protocols. Survivor support remains central. The National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide that is coordinated by the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities directs us to expand shelters, provide trauma-informed counseling and legal aid, and ensure disability-inclusive services for all survivors. Honorable members, these measures reflect a whole-of-government response, but we also need a whole-of-society response because trafficking thrives in silence. To defeat it, we must all work together. To our families and communities, stay vigilant. Speak openly about the dangers of suspicious offers. If a young person is approached with an opportunity, ask the difficult question before it is too late. To our schools, TVET, colleges, and universities, you have a vital role to play in prevention. Let us integrate anti-trafficking awareness into classrooms and campuses so that young people know the risk before they are targeted. To our faith and traditional leadership, civil society and local organizations, create safe spaces where people can report concerns without fear or stigma and support survivors as they rebuild their lives. To our social media companies and recruiters, act faster, provide transparent reporting, and ensure that recruitment is safe and accountable. And to our parliament, this House must continue to strengthen oversight, ensure that resources for survivor care are expanded, and support cooperation across borders to dismantle syndicates. To our beloved youth, opportunity does not demand secrecy, rush, or payment. Even offer pressures you to hide it from family, to pay money, or to hand over your passport. It is not opportunity, it is exploitation. And to traffickers and their enablers, our message is firm. South Africa is closing the space for your crimes in our streets, at our borders, and across the internet. You will be found, prosecuted, and stripped of your proceed. If you doubt it, just today, 7 Chinese nationals were each handed a 20-year prison sentence for human trafficking, kidnapping, and forced labor.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Your time has now expired.
Thank you very much.
Honorable members, we will now move over to party responses to the ministerial statement. I recognize the Honorable Abader.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members and fellow South Africans, I greet you in the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let us begin not with theory, but with tragedy. Earlier this year, 23 young South Africans were lured to Myanmar with promises of good jobs that would change their lives. Among them, a young woman barely out of her teens. She left believing she was traveling to a brighter future. Instead, she was stripped of her passport the moment she landed. She was locked in a foreign compound surrounded by armed guards. She was beaten when she resisted, forced to sit for endless hours behind a computer tricking other strangers online. When her body grew weak, she was threatened with rape and death. She cried for home, but there was no one to hear her except her captors. This is not fiction. This is the lived reality of our youth, our daughters, our sisters, our brothers, betrayed by the false promises of traffickers who prey on desperation. And only after months of torment were they rescued and repatriated. By then, their dignity was shattered, their trust destroyed, and their families scarred forever. Honorable Speaker, this is what unsolicited job offers abroad really mean. Behind polite phrasing lies human trafficking, modern slavery, and systemic exploitation. South Africans sit with youth unemployment of over 40%. For young women in Elsie's Rivier, in Khayelitsha, in Zone 11, Johannesburg South, in rural KwaZulu-Natal, every day is a battle for survival. They have been waiting for jobs, for homes, for dignity for over 20 years. When the state fails to create hope, when there is nothing at home, then even a scam from abroad looks like salvation. Traffickers do not have to work hard. Poverty and government failure to do the recruitment for them. Honorable Speaker, the blame lies squarely with the GNU. The GNU is being quick to issue press statements but painfully slow to deliver solutions. It is this government's failure to create jobs, to provide safety, and to build dignity that leaves our youth vulnerable. They stand at this podium, wag their fingers, and tell our young women to be cautious. But who created the conditions that forced them to look abroad for hope? The GNU did. Who allowed corruption to eat the very programs meant to uplift women and youth? The GNU did. Who lets billions slip through their fingers while our daughters are trafficked into slavery? The GNU does. The GNU only reacts after the damage is done. The Myanmar case shocked the nation, but it was not the first, and it certainly will not be the last. Now the minister tells us, verify with embassies, exercise caution. But how, honorable members, does a young woman in an informal settlement who can barely afford taxi fare and data verify an overseas job with embassies in Pretoria? These instructions are detached from reality. They sound good in press release, but mean nothing in Guguletu, in Mamelodi, or in Knysna. And let me remind this House, it is no use closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. By the time government issues its warnings, the traffickers have already struck, the young's lives are already damaged, and the family is already mourning. Honorable Speaker, the minister points to the presidential employment stimulus and other programs, but we know the truth. These are just band-aids on a gaping wound. Just this year, over 100 million in human settlements grants was reallocated, money that could have built homes, unlocked projects, and created jobs for young people in our communities. Instead, that money was shuffled around on paper while our youth remained in shacks, in queues, and in despair. In the same time, billions are stolen through corruption, and yet government wonders why traffickers find easy prey. The traffickers are filling the vacuum created by state failure. Honorable Speaker, let the GNU and the minister hear this clearly. If MK Party was in power, things would not look like this. We would launch nationwide awareness campaigns in schools, in religious institutions, in taxi ranks, in rural villages, in every language, and not leave it to those institutions to do the work. We would be instrumental in doing it. Our youth must be armed with knowledge before traffickers reach them. We would invest in community-based employment cooperatives and small enterprises to create jobs where people live. No South African should have to seek salvation in a stranger's WhatsApp message from abroad. We would demand quarterly reports in Parliament on human trafficking prevention. How many campaigns have been run? How many youths have been reached? How many cases have been stopped? Ministers would not hide behind vague words. They would face consequences for inaction. Honorable Speaker, the minister's role is not simple to caution and warn. Any NGO can do that. Her role is to present a plan of action. Where is the plan of action, Honorable Speaker? Where are the timelines, the budgets, the partnerships? Where is the evidence of real work being done? This House deserves answers, not polite warnings. South Africans deserve protection, not empty statements. We cannot treat this issue in isolation. Women and youth in South Africa live daily under violence, abuse, and neglect. From the gang-ridden cave flats to overcrowded informal settlements, young women are unsafe both at home and abroad. When the state fails to deliver housing, safety, and jobs, traffickers step into the vacuum. Every false job offer is a symptom of government's deeper failure to provide dignity and opportunity. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, the MK Party acknowledges the minister's cautionary statement, but we say firmly, caution is not a policy, warnings are not protection, statements are not solutions. We say to this GNU, stop reacting after tragedy, start preventing it, stop using statements, start delivering jobs, stop shifting
Thank
blame,
you,
start
Honourable
taking
Member. Your time
responsibility
has now
and
expired.
Until then, every so-called unsolicited
Thank you, Honourable Member.
is scam, but abroad, it's a mirror reflecting.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Kanyile.
Honorable Chair, House members, I rise to add my voice to this deeply concerning trend where women, especially young women in our country, are targeted by fraudulent schemes where criminals pose as recruiters to lure victims with fake overseas job offers that promise high salaries, free travel, and accommodation. Some approach young women with fake contracts, but the reality on arrival is stark. In some instances, passports are confiscated, salaries withheld, and they work in slave-like conditions. Recently, we have had an incident reported that there are women from our country who applied for jobs in Russia, Alabuga. The said job opportunities were advertised by South African influencers, whom some allegedly confirmed to have done their research and went online using their various social media platforms to convince every interested young woman that the jobs are legit, when in fact the opposite is true. It is also alleged that these influencers were paid 150,000 rands each for this advertisement. South African women who applied for the so-called opportunities and traveled to Russia are said to be linked to human trafficking, forced in labor camps and slave-like conditions, and those influencers have not faced consequences for putting the lives of fellow women in danger. We call on SAPS to ensure these influencers face the full might of the law and call on the Ministry of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities to monitor this and ensure the rights of every woman is protected and send a strong message that South Africa is not a playground for opportunists who want to exploit our young women. Chairperson, the above-mentioned incident is not an isolated one. We have on numerous occasions seen community members receiving text messages or emails promising them an inheritance left to them by deceased family members based abroad. Honorable members, with all these scams taking place, one thing that stands out, it is past government's failures to create job opportunities that lead to our youth, especially women, falling victim to such scams. We have on this platform stated time and time again the importance of growing our economy and creating job opportunities, yet the ANC keep masquerading like it has won the majority of votes during the 2024 elections and is hell-bent in forcing through the same policies that have brought this country to its knees. Honorable members, the official unemployment rate rose to 33.2% in Q2 2025, up from 32.9% in Q1 2025, driven by an increase of 140,000 unemployed individuals. Behind these numbers are people whose dream to ever find employment opportunities within our borders diminishes with each day that passes. The reality is that majority of young South Africans are unemployed and looking for an opportunity to escape the dark hole of poverty. While we caution women against unsolicited foreign jobs, the ANC is equally to blame for its failed policies of the past. The DA has a plan to create 2 million jobs in South Africa during the 2024 to 2029 term. Our key economic priorities: launching a startup nation where small business takes flight, saving and spending better, stopping interference with the Reserve Bank, getting South Africans working, creating growth, not oligopolies, enhancing South Africa's global competitiveness, being pro-market and not pro-business. We need stronger regulation of recruitment practices, tighter border controls, and swift action against syndicates that masquerade as agencies. South Africa must strengthen bilateral agreements with destination countries to safeguard our citizens who choose to work abroad legitimately. At the same time, honorable members, the lack of economic opportunities in our country ultimately creates the scenario of having talent without opportunity and a youth simply surviving and not thriving. To every young woman, verify jobs advertised through our International Relations Department, Employment and Labor, our liaison offices in the countries of interest. In conclusion, Chairperson, I call upon all sectors, government, civil society, and communities to stand as a shield around our women. Let us ensure that the pursuit of opportunity never again becomes a pathway to exploitation. Let us all in one voice say, South African women are not for sale. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Mailola.
Chair, there is an important point which must be made about the scale of the problem which confronts us. Human trafficking is not a distant crisis. It is happening in front of our eyes every day in our communities, in our clubs, and on our streets. The Human Sciences Research Council estimates that up to 250,000 people have fallen victim of human trafficking practices in South Africa. It has been found that South Africa is not only a host for human trafficking, but equally facilitates the sourcing of victims and transferring of them to other countries. Every year, thousands of women and children disappear without a trace, recruited under false pretense, and forced into sexual exploitation and domestic servitude. Criminal syndicates are operating openly and confidently in South Africa because our state has collapsed, our police are under-resourced, and our criminal justice system is compromised. Victims report cases, yet no arrests are made, dockets disappear, and prosecutors lose evidence. Under this government, justice is not just delayed, it is denied. As if that is not enough, those in power are also at war with each other. Many of you sitting here use the same syndicates to fight your own political battles and even go as far as killing your own comrades and colleagues. This is precisely what the President and Commander-in-Chief of the EFF is going to address in the ad hoc committee into the allegations and revelations of General Mkhwanazi. For this reason, we shall use this opportunity to deal with another urgent matter which is confronting us, an issue which affects young people directly and violently, not with weapons, but with policies designed to destroy their future. There is a minister here who has been bought by white-collar criminals to sell and blacklist the youth of South Africa. It is not a secret that debt is a tradable asset. It is sold, it is repackaged so that predatory financial institutions can make profit. This minister, we are told, has lined up all his criminal friends who are debt collectors to buy the poor debts of students and the youth of South Africa. These criminals are going to call our students day and night, harassing them about this debt and threatening them. By the way, a blacklisted young person cannot get a job. A blacklisted young person cannot get their first home. A blacklisted young person cannot get access to financing. A blacklisted young person cannot get access to their first cars and cannot even start their first businesses. These are students who studied under impossible conditions, hungry, without laptops and textbooks, sleeping in lecture halls and lecture theaters, yet they finished their qualifications against all odds. But when it is time to graduate, they can't graduate. Why? Because you withhold their certificates because they owe the universities money. Now you want to punish them for the second time. You've punished them already by not giving them their certificates. Now you are punishing them by blacklisting them. This same government will condemn our youth in a permanent cycle of debt, poverty, and humiliation. It will strip them of their dignity and punish them for pursuing an education. The Deputy Minister of Trade ran away. I'm not going to waste my time with him. I was just going to advise him to read the Gazette of March 2015, including the proposed amendment on Regulation 19. So we must ask the question, who benefits when an educated black youth doesn't have access to the economy? Who benefits when our youth desperate, even fall prey for human trafficking syndicates? Who benefits when our young people are sitting at home, unemployed, depressed, drowning in alcohol and drug abuse? I'll tell you who benefits. It's the human trafficking syndicates. It's the syndicates that fund your lifestyles. It's the syndicates that buy expensive cars and expensive houses for ministers in government and their children. This is a betrayal of the June 16 generation. This is a betrayal of the fees must fall generation. This is the betrayal of students who took it to the streets seeking an education and instead received bullets, instead received arrest and victimization. Years later, you want to criminalize them. You want to criminalize them for owing debt. Yet this same government said to them, the doors of learning shall be open. You said to them they must go to school. They've gone to school. They've finished their academic requirements. You don't want to give them their degrees. And on top of that, you want to blacklist them. We're calling on the youth of South Africa. We can't be complainants forever. We must unite in parliament and in the streets of South Africa. We're going to fight this policy here in parliament, but we're also going to fight it in the streets. We will never retreat. We will never allow you to destroy the youth of this country. We're going to meet you in the portfolio committee meetings. We're going to meet you in the streets of South Africa. We're calling on all young people. Let us reject these people that want to blacklist the youth and students of South Africa.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
No surrender.
Your time is
Let us
now
meet.
expired.
Let us.
Honourable Member, thank you. Honourable Van der Merwe.
House Chairperson, we thank the Honourable Minister for her statement this afternoon and for the interventions she has announced, and for putting the spotlight firmly on the protection of our women and youth. But the reality is, Honourable Chairperson, empowerment, true and meaningful empowerment, is the strongest protection we can offer our young women. Honourable members, think of those thousands of young women who rise at dawn just to join a long SASSA queue in order to access a 350. For many, a mere drop in the ocean, but for them, it is survival. It is a lifeline to an opportunity. Further still, picture holding a degree, an achievement that should unlock an opportunity, but you face a job market that refuses to recognize your potential because you lack specific market-relevant skills. Or consider the young woman tasked with caring for her extended family, who never finished school or never had an opportunity to access tertiary education. She too searches day in and day out for work, yet entry-level or unskilled job opportunities are now largely occupied by foreign nationals, leaving her sidelined in the country of her birth. This is the harsh reality for millions of young women in South Africa. These women are not mere statistics. These are dreams deferred and futures compromised. These unemployed women are not just numbers. They are South Africa's future, the raw talent waiting to be nurtured. Yet desperation makes them vulnerable, and that is why they fall prey to unsolicited overseas job scams. Promises of a better life that often lead to human trafficking and exploitation. And while we appreciate the Minister's warning to women about the dangers of unsolicited foreign job offers and scholarships, the caution is not enough. Empowerment and true and meaningful empowerment is the strongest protection we can offer our women. Empowerment starts with our education system. We must reform our education system, and we need to foster a culture that values vocational training, entrepreneurship, and one that prioritizes market-relevant skills. Secondly, under the leadership of the new NYDA board and CEO, the NYDA must ensure the upskilling, mentoring, and employment opportunities of our young people. Thirdly, we need to reserve some job opportunities in some sectors for young South Africans, especially the spaza shop industry. We need to put South Africans first. We also need to ensure that all social workers that have been trained by the state are deployed to vulnerable communities, where they can help assist vulnerable communities. And finally, we need to see action taken against the influencers who promoted these foreign job scams. The IFP has long maintained that we must empower women and youth with the tools, skills, and resources to stand tall, dignified, and independent, rather than trapped in dependency and cycles of poverty, desperation, and finally rendering them vulnerable to exploitation. While we support your clarion call, Honourable Minister, for prevention and protection and an all-of-society approach to fight GBVF and human trafficking, I must tell you again, Honourable Minister, empowerment, true empowerment led by your department, is the strongest protection we can offer our young women. I thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Honourable Peterson.
Thank you, House Chair, honorable members, fellow South Africans. I rise on a matter of grave national concern, the predatory scourge of foreign jobs targeting South African women. These are not opportunities. They are traps set by sophisticated syndicates that prey on hope and vulnerability. Minister, while I appreciate your stated concern, I must say, questioning women is not a solution, it's a deflection. Our message may be, if an offer seems too good to be true, it is, but we must ask ourselves, why are these offers so attractive in the first place? Women aren't naive, they are desperate. Desperate because we have failed to provide sufficient economic opportunities at home. Therefore, a statement of caution is not enough. We need a comprehensive, a whole of government approach that moves beyond advice into decisive action. Prevention through a massive national awareness campaign, but also by addressing the root cause, a lack of viable options here at home. We must create an economy where our daughters are not forced to seek desperate measures. Protection must be extended beyond telling women to scrutinize contracts. We must strengthen visa vetting, create a dedicated SEPS hotline, and ensure our embassies are true sanctuaries for those industries. Prosecution, where are the policies that crack down these traffickers? The freedom and dignity of South African women are not for sale. The burden cannot be on women alone. We need action, we need enforcement, and we must defend our nation's humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Denner.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Chair, this problem we are facing is a direct consequence of the staggering unemployment in our country. With nearly 50% of the economically active population being unemployed, this crisis is not just a statistic. It is a direct consequence of decades of failed economic stewardship under ANC leadership. And now this crisis is feeding a darker underbelly, namely human trafficking syndicates preying on desperate young people looking for work abroad because they cannot find work here. These job offers are nothing more than false hope in a hopeless landscape. A landscape that has become a hunting ground for traffickers who lure young South Africans abroad with fake job offers. These job offers are in many cases unsolicited and often mask crimes like forced labor, where victims are coerced into cybercrime, factory work or servitude abroad, or sexual exploitation, especially of young women who are lured with promises of modeling or hospitality jobs. And sadly, in some cases, as we've heard from the previous speakers as well, social media influencers or celebrities are complicit in promoting these scams. A call to caution women is not enough. Serious action is needed to protect our youth and our women against these unscrupulous scammers. Verified information should be amplified by government departments involved, and a holistic, cooperative approach should be followed. Expanded awareness campaigns, for instance, of all the points the Minister mentioned, should be launched on all social media platforms and widely promoted to warn people of the dangers of such unsolicited job offers. Targeted campaigns in schools, universities and rural areas should be undertaken, and faith and community-based organizations should be involved in fighting this phenomenon. Verification channels through DIRCO and the Department of Labour should be strengthened, for instance, by creating a specified portal for the vetting of international recruiters. And border and visa controls should be enhanced by training immigration officials to spot red flags in travel patterns and documentation. And trafficking routes should be tracked better in cooperation with Interpol and regional partners. And proper repatriation support and counselling should be provided to victims of these crimes. But first and foremost, Chair, South Africa should sort out its unemployment crisis to ensure that our youth do not have to look abroad or find themselves in such desperation that they would even consider falling for a carefully crafted scam that will lead to them losing their freedom, their dignity, and in many cases, even their lives. I thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honorable Beasley.
Speaker, for more than a year now, South Africans have been betrayed by a coalition government that has failed to produce a single credible plan to address the country's lack of growth and deepening unemployment crisis. Economic growth has remained below 1% since the formation of the GNU, with yesterday's second quarter results confirming a meager 0.8% increase for the second quarter of 2025. These numbers are a damning indictment of governments unwilling or unable to work together to deliver solutions for South Africans. The consequences is that every day more South Africans go home without work, forced to close their businesses and go to bed hungry. In the first quarter of this year alone, every day, 5,000 people lost their jobs in South Africa. Today, 1 in 3 job seekers simply cannot find a job. Given this shocking reality, how on earth can we be surprised that vulnerable people, especially women, fall prey in an economy that leaves them desperate and exposed to exploitative schemes? This is an inevitable consequence of a landscape where legitimate employment opportunities in South Africa are scarce, or in many cases, simply unavailable. Speaker, whilst we can wax lyrically about the vile criminal syndicates exploiting women, we are approaching this debate in an entirely schizophrenic manner. We are attempting to address the problem without confronting the root cause, effectively treating the symptom while ignoring the underlying reality. We must deal decisively with human trafficking syndicates and crush them, but we must remain laser focused on addressing the crisis of unemployment in South Africa, which is the very heart of this matter. The worsening crisis is foundational to understanding why so many people find themselves vulnerable to such exploitation. In conclusion, we thank you, Minister, for your statement, and we hope that South Africans adhere to your sound caution. We need jobs, and we need them now. We need less talk and more action. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Meshwe.
Speaker, honorable members, we are all concerned about human trafficking. We are concerned about our children that are being kidnapped and abused. And we have to send a strong message out there to the potential abusers that their time is running out. Their time is running out. There are going to be changes that will ensure that they get the harshest punishment possible. Recent reports reveal that social media platforms are being weaponized by trafficking syndicates to lure vulnerable women with promises of overseas employment. Despite refutation by the Russian embassy in South Africa, these offers are for jobs, particularly in Russia. These offers, often promoted by influencers, are not sanctioned by any government entity and have been linked to exploitative labor practices, including drone manufacturing under coercive conditions. These are not opportunities, they are traps. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation has confirmed that no bilateral agreements exist to support such programs. The Prevention and Combating of Trafficking of Persons Act of 2013 criminalizes all forms of trafficking, including recruitment through deception and exploitation across borders. Our unemployment rate for young women in our country is very high. This desperation is being exploited. In March, DECO repatriated South Africans from Myanmar who were lured into cyber scam operations under false pretenses. The victims responded to fake advertisements that promise high salaries and easy work, only to find themselves trapped in remote compounds with their passports confiscated. They face torture, sexual violence, arbitrary detention, and even organ harvesting in extreme cases. These are not isolated incidences, they are part of global trafficking network. The ACDP calls on government to empower women in this country with good education and employment opportunities so that they would not be tempted to take offers from organizations that are not credible. We agree with you, Honorable Minister, that young people should exercise extreme caution when engaging with unsolicited offers for international employment, and that genuine brokers do not charge fees for job placements. As the ACDP, we call for immediate public awareness campaigns targeting.
Thank you,
vulnerable-
Honorable Reverend Meshwe. Your time has now expired. Is there a speaker on behalf of the UDM? Would seem not. Then I recognize the Honorable Garner.
Yes, Amanya. Mackenzie Mthomashtuli. Honorable members, fellow South Africans, kidnapping, human trafficking, slave labor, and the like are not only matters that end up outside of our borders, but often vulnerable and unsuspecting women and children in rural communities are uprooted and placed in urban areas as drug runners and users and unconsenting sex workers. There is a dark practice in our communities where particularly young women and children vanish into thin air or later emerge having been victims of false job promises that turn out to be slave labor or a victim of human and sex trafficking. The kingpins of these operations often operate in plain sight. Their adverts appear on social media platforms and in newspapers. The kingpins are aided and abetted by our own community members, and as we have learned, they fund local social media influencers to do their evil bidding. I will go further and say that this dark practice is only possible when the machinery of the state, particularly Home Affairs and Crime Intelligence, are asleep at the wheel or co-opted, to the extent that they turn a blind eye to or are unable to detect these practices. Honorable members, according to studies, human traffickers operating in South Africa are primarily from Nigeria and South Africa. However, there are also reports of traffickers from Bangladesh, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Pakistan, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and the People's Republic of China. This is not a statement rooted in xenophobia or Afrophobia, but a statement rooted in reality, which we must face head-on through Home Affairs and Crime Intelligence. As is the case with many of our problems as a country, there is a lack of political will in solving the problems. We have the Prevention and Combating of Trafficking in Persons Act, which empowers, amongst others, the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Justice and International Relations, the State Security Agents, and the Commissioner of Police to solve this dark practice. Despite this powerful piece of legislation, there's little evidence to its effect and impact. Minister, if you do not leave this house with a commitment to ensure that South African women and children are kept safe and protected from human and sex trafficking and slave labor, this debate will have been in vain. As Rise Mzansi will hold you accountable for the sake of a safe South Africa. A South Africa free from the dark practices of human and sex trafficking and slave labor. A South Africa where women and children do not fear disappearing into thin air or being subjected to slave labor. Mackenzie Mthomashtuli.
Thank you. Is there a speaker on behalf of BOSA? Is there a speaker on behalf of the ATM? Then I recognize the Honorable Ishmael Musa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I seek protection from Satan with the Almighty. I greet you in the name of Almighty, the most gracious, the most merciful. It's been 69 years since the historic march by women to the union buildings. Yet women continue to face barriers to achieving equal participation in our economy. This form of inequality is found on all labor levels in our society. South Africa's latest quarterly labor force survey revealed that women continue to be unjustifiably affected by unemployment and economic exclusion. According to the survey, South Africa's national unemployment rate is 33.2%, but for women it stands at 35.9%. However, the inequality in employment stretches to the education sector as well. Statistics South Africa revealed that the unemployment rate amongst graduates is 12.2%, with a rate of 15% for female graduates compared to 8.9% for males. People are generally looking for security and safety, and in most cases, women are at the bitter end of the struggle. The lucrative job opportunities by human trafficking syndicates are using people's desperation for jobs, thus luring them to accept all sorts of jobs, including illegal activities. Al-Jamaa calls on government to investigate those social media influencers who promote unsolicited job opportunities for women in foreign countries. Furthermore, increase awareness campaigns on the dangers of accepting unsolicited jobs in foreign countries. Women must be advised that before taking up any employment abroad, they must first interact with the relevant South African authorities. As a nation, we must acknowledge that foreign jobs are far more lucrative in terms of better salaries, benefits, and an opportunity for employment. Government should invest more in places of safety for women, as they must be fully equipped to provide the necessary skills development. Such places of safety is also an avenue to create awareness on unsolicited foreign job opportunities. We have wonderful policies in place, but not fully implemented to protect women's rights at all levels. Women deserve our protection. Malibongwe.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Is there a speaker on behalf of the NCC? Honourable Maglatsi, you're not taking part. Thank you. A speaker on behalf of Good? Then I recognize the Honourable Chauke Adonis.
There we go. Ooh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to honorable members, our officials, and fellow South Africans. Today, as I stand before you and we debate or discuss and engage on a critical matter that is facing many young South Africans and Africans continentally. The issue and the scourge of human trafficking that has deeply rooted itself amongst our young people. We take note and cognizance of the high unemployment rate that is affecting young people and how young people have fallen victim to scams and also to opportunistic individuals and companies that seek to ascertain cheap labor and abusive practices. As the African National Congress, we have been very clear on protecting the rights of all South African citizens, prioritizing youth development, and protecting the lives of the most vulnerable, and ensuring that women's rights are enhanced and protected. But yet, we have those who lurk in the background. Yet, we have those who lurk and look for opportunity for them to come and infiltrate our young people and our women. The African National Congress has always been in the forefront of putting forward progressive legislations and policies that seek to promote and protect the lives of the most vulnerable, creating economic and social opportunities for our young people, taking into consideration the economic crisis that we find ourselves in as a country, and being alive to the reality of the people on the ground. We say to young people, it is our constitutional mandate as members of the National Assembly, as the executive, as political parties, to ensure that we safeguard the rights of those who might fall victim, to those who are less educated, to those who find themselves destitute and find themselves victimized, but yet open towards opportunities and those who think they can take advantage. What is important for us to realize is that we've got legislations that are progressive. Legislation such as the Consumer Protection Act that was brought into legislation into act in 2009. Now, as the African National Congress, I believe that through this National Assembly, we should call for this to be reviewed. This should be reviewed in order for us to ensure that we move with the times of e-commerce and the digital era that we find ourselves in, to ensure that those who are consumers of digital content are also protected. Equal to this, it is important for us to ensure that those who are beneficiaries, financially or otherwise, in this illicit practice must be brought to book. And I speak to those social media influencers, the ones who go and promote these job scams, the ones who take our young girls and boys to other countries and utilize them for different non-known reasons. The ones who are then beneficiaries and have fat bank accounts and show a certain lifestyle in which our young people pursue to ascertain, not knowing the true realities of what they had to do to get there, utilizing our young people who are desperate for opportunities. We also call for interdepartmental collaboration, international collaboration with other countries and stakeholders for us to combat human trafficking and any form of infringement on the rights of our South African young people. It is important not only for the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities to play an active role, but it must be a leader and championing in protecting the rights of those who find themselves vulnerable and victim. We call upon our police services to be more alert, to be more decisive. The justice system must not be soft, it must be hard. The minister spoke about a sentence that took place. We call for more harsher sentences. Let there be more prosecutions that are taking place. Let us see more of our young people coming back into South Africa. Let there be investment in resources to rehabilitate these young people and these South Africans who are brought back home. We must understand the importance of psychosocial support and interventions that are required. To the Minister of Treasury, I speak to you to say we must ensure that there is ring-fenced financing that gives departments a flexibility for them to ensure that necessary interventions and strategies are put in place. The Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities must play an oversight role to ensure that all departments are effectively contributing to combating not only gender-based violence, human trafficking, and misleading of information. The Department of Communications and Digital Technology must play an instrumental role when it comes to cyber security. We call for legislations to be reviewed, for legislative reform, and we must ensure that the legislation speak towards the digital era that we find ourselves in. Whether we like it or not, South Africans and members in this august house, we are in the digital era. Young people are consumers. How can we ensure that these platforms are safer for them? How can we ensure that those who are in the private sector and are creators of these platforms must be held accountable? There must be regulations that allow for us to ensure that these platforms are not utilized to subject our South African people to systematic abuse. Additionally, as the African National Congress, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that there is a review of legislation to protect our young people. It is our commitment to ensure that we create economic opportunities for young people. We know when young people find themselves desperate, they seek opportunities. And some of these opportunities are genuine opportunities. We ask that the embassies open themselves up to collaborating with the government and open themselves up to creating programs to sensitize and educate those in our communities. We also call for a curriculum, a subject that will teach our young people, our children on e-commerce and also on the digital era. Digital literacy is critical and instrumental. This is part of prevention. It is better for us to prevent than to cure, is where we are finding ourselves. The cases that we're speaking of now, it's not an isolated case. There are many cases that go back, but what have we done? Let this not be a conversation that we have today, but let it be an uncomfortable conversation that we continue having until we have resolved it, until human trafficking is no longer a subject in South Africa. As our latter speaker has said, we say not in our name. We say not our girls. South Africa is not a free for all. And we say we will make sure that those who are perpetrators are brought to justice. The African National Congress calls for unity and calls for precaution. We also say we are together and we will come for you. Those social media influencers, we are saying to you, we will be coming for you and you will not live comfortably. Those who are beneficiaries of these scams, we will be coming for you. Law enforcement, we look up to you and also
Thank
those
you,
who are
Honourable
lawmakers.
Member.
Thank you very much.
Honourable members, that concludes party responses. I now recognize the Honourable Minister to reply.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Let me thank all members who participated in this debate. We are politicians, we politic, but this debate was characterized by the realization that our people, particularly women, youth, persons with disabilities, as well as children, must be safe and secured in their country, and that all of us have to play some role in order to ensure that they are safe and they are not trafficked. Indeed, poverty and unemployment, they do predispose our people to such traps such as human trafficking. Of course, they do this out of desperation. And today's debate is actually saying to all South Africans, be cautious. Youth unemployment is a problem. The president referred to it as a crisis. We are doing everything to solve this crisis. The Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, Youth Employment Service, NYDA initiatives, Public Procurement Act that set aside 40% for women, 30% for youth, and 7% for persons with disabilities are all initiatives that aim to address unemployment. The 20 billion Rand Transformation Fund was also announced by the president this year. So indeed, we are trying to solve the crisis that we are facing. However, let me say again this, going back to the topic of the day, to traffickers and their enablers, our message is firm. South Africa is closing the space for your crimes in our streets, at our borders, and across the internet. We know where you operate. We will find you, will prosecute you, and will strip you of your proceeds. If you doubt it, I just want to remind you again, because I wanted to say this, 7 Chinese nationals were each handed a 20-year prison sentence for human trafficking, kidnapping, and forced labor just today. And we just have to say this, well done to our criminal justice system. The message is sound, and it is very clear. Human trafficking is crime. To syndicates and big bosses, we are coming for you. We have laws in this country. We will send you to jail screaming or crying or pointing fingers at whoever. Fellow South Africans, human trafficking steals futures. But together with vigilance, compassion, and the full force of our laws, we can stop it. The safety and security of South Africans is non-negotiable. Our dreams are not for sale. South Africans, particularly youth, persons with disabilities, women and children, an offer that feels wrong or that is too good to be true. It is not an offer, it is exploitation. Walk away from it and run away from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day.